Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Council and Committee for March 10th, 2025 to order. Welcome to members of Council, staff, and everybody in our studio audience as well. We'll start the meeting off with our reading of the land acknowledgement, and this evening it's Deputy Mayor Sauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we gather this evening, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of the Petawawa Town Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Omama Winini people. We would like to thank the Omama Winini people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years, and we wish to acknowledge our shared responsibilities in responding to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission 94 calls to action. Calls to action number 45. We call upon the Government of Canada on behalf of all Canadians to jointly develop with Aboriginal peoples a royal proclamation of reconciliation to be issued by the Crown. The proclamation would build on the Royal Proclamation of 1763 and the Treaty of Niagara of 1764, and reaffirm the nation-to-nation relationship between Aboriginal peoples and the Crown. Recent progress. In 2019, the Government of Canada signed self-government agreements for the Métis Nation of Ontario, the Métis Nation Saskatchewan, and the Métis Nation of Alberta, affirming its commitment to renewing nation-to-nation relationship based on recognition of rights, respect, cooperation, and partnership.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest on any of this evening's matters? There's no presentations. We've got a massive agenda, so we're going to dive right into it. We'll start with Melanie, Planning and Development, your monthly activity report. Take it away.
Good evening. A couple items I would like to highlight in the monthly report for Planning and Development. In February, we held interviews for our vacant building inspector position, and I'm happy to share that we have a successful candidate starting on March 31st, who are fully qualified in house, small building, and large building code requirements. So we're pretty excited heading into the construction season, fully loaded on the building inspector side of things. On an unfortunate twist, in February, we had Jeff Vaught, our senior planner, resign. His last day is April 4th. This is the only committee meeting where I'll have a chance just to shout out Jeff. He was with us for a short time, but a good time, as the saying goes. He really provided a lot in the months that he has been with us, and we will miss him here. His position, the planner position, is posted. We have resumes. We've gone through them. We're setting up resumes, or interviews for the next couple weeks. March 4th, we hosted a development summit, and most of you were there. We've gotten very positive feedback. About 61 was the confirmed attendance. There's lots of follow-up from there, sharing of information, slide decks. We'll have a summary report to council later in the month with what we heard from the various discussion groups. On that same note, the day after the summit, we found out that we received a grant from Renfrew County Community Futures Development Corporation to help offset the costs of the summit, which was great. So thanks to Renfrew County Community Futures for that contribution. In Appendix A of the planning report is all the active planning applications we have. So you can see still a full slate. Appendix B are the building permit summaries for January and February. So we're off to a strong start. Number of permits is up value of construction is up as well. And there's a lot kind of in the hopper. I think the mild weather, everybody's getting spring fever. We're certainly seeing lots come through. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Melanie. That's great news about the building department and us having another building inspector, as you said, with the upcoming season. And yeah, it is unfortunate. Jeff was a great employee, but as you said, he was here for a good time, not a long time. So we're looking forward to his replacement. I'll open it up to questions from members of council on the report. No questions. And it's great to see January and February off to a strong start already. So we're looking for big things this spring. Okay, if there are no questions, I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Councillor Roots, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that the Planning and Development Monthly Report be accepted as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, next we have PL-07-2025, Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z 187, James W. LaPointe Motor Holdings Incorporated. Correspondence received after public meeting and passing of bylaw. Ellen.
Okay, this is something unfortunate that happened with this file. So you recall last Monday we had the public meeting for this application, and later in the council meeting passed the bylaw. On March 5th, the planners and myself were forwarded an email with an email trail that a resident of the town had asked questions the week prior about this file, that none of us received that email. They followed up later on March 3rd at 11 o'clock p.m. our time, after the public meeting and council meeting would have been over, with further questions, and asked for that to be read as their written submission at the meeting. So we never got either of those emails before the public meeting and the subsequent passing of the bylaw last week. So I outlined it all in the report here for you. We do have Catherine from JP2G that can answer the questions raised in both the email from February and March 3rd. On top of that, I mentioned some improvements that we've already been working on in our processes, which is to get emails out of single person mailboxes to provide better coverage for all of these types of circumstances. When you depend on one person, it's an error trap, in my opinion. So we're in the final stages of getting a planning mailbox from which we'll be using to send these legislative requirements and asking for comments back, with all of us monitoring the mailbox. So not just depending on one person and one person sending it to another one person and so on. So that will help. We had also talked about separating out public meetings from passing the bylaw. So having a bit of grace or buffer period in between those two activities that would help in a situation like this. So that's something you'll see going forward. We plan to have a public meeting and then at least 1 week before we come back to you with the bylaw to pass. So internally, those are improvements that we're working on: the group mailbox with more coverage, as well as scheduling to prevent something like this going forward. However, for this file, we still have this situation. So we can bring a bylaw forward next week to repeal the bylaw and redo the public meeting. We can have Catherine answer the questions tonight, and council can decide if they're comfortable that their decision would stand. I have 15 days to issue a notice of decision from when it was passed, so that's after next week's meeting. So we could also get some questions answered this week. The resident did indicate that they may have more questions. We had asked for them by today, but we didn't get anything. So we could see if anything comes in this week and decide next week whether you want to repeal or go forward with the decision as well. So there's a few options before us to fix this situation. Would you like to start with Catherine from JP2G answering the questions from the emails that we do have?
Okay, thanks for this, Melanie. And anytime there is a hiccup in our processes, as we can see, improvements are made. So it's good to see that we're making adjustments and improvements in our processes. I guess Catherine drove all the way here. Just by nods of head, is council comfortable with having the questions on the residents' emails answered by Catherine? Okay, I guess we'll start with that.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Yes, so I'd like to start off by just, reiterating, I believe, what Melanie said. And so this rezoning is a condition of consent. So these severances have already went through the county's process. They've went through the county's public notice process, and the planning rationale and reasoning behind these lots has been reviewed by both the county and the town staff. And these consents were deemed to be in compliance with the policies of the town's official plan. To address them, I guess, directly, I guess item 1 and item 2 were both, I'll say, requirements to comply with the zoning. Item 1, the minimum distance. Minimum distance is required to be met through the bylaw. Putting the increased front yard setback was just an additional safeguard. Item 2, prohibiting the use of the outbuildings. They are not currently capable of housing livestock. Again, it was just a additional safeguard. And item 3, reducing the lot frontage. The reason that this was requested is because the road frontage is between 2 existing lots. The lot does widen after it passes, and we considered it an efficient use of land, making the most of the property. There is, I believe, at least, I think, 80 meters. Once you get past, I think it's like a 60 meter, kind of 20 meter stretch. And then I think the property overall is over 3 hectares, and it widens out just past the road entrance. And again, the county and the town reviewed the consents and determined that they were in keeping with the rural policies, and were satisfactory to create these rural lots. So, thank you.
Okay, I'll open it up for questions from council. Councillor Carmody.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Just a question regarding what our obligations might be with respect to the fact that this individual did reach out and, send communication, and it's our process that failed here. So what obligations have we got to him, if any?
So under the Planning Act, council has to consider all written submissions before making a decision. There is no time frame specified between, there's no time frame specified within which you need to make a decision, the way the Planning Act is written. But in this case, because we did have a question before the public meeting, then that council should have considered that making their decision.
So it would appear to me that there's no decision to be made here. We have to roll this back because we're in contravention of the Planning Act, are we not?
The one thing is we haven't issued notice of decision yet. I understand where you're coming from. The date of the public meeting, the date of the decision was March 3rd, and we had not received the comments by then.
So just for clarification, what we're doing tonight is considering the communications from this individual. So that's what's happening right now with input from Catherine and Melanie. We're considering the input from this individual, and we can act in 2 ways. We can decide that we're comfortable with the decision we made with respect to these severances, even after we consider the concerns and questions of the resident, or we can decide to repeal the decision we made in the past. So I guess in terms of the Planning Act, we are considering this individual's comments and the letters. The decision to be made now is, are we comfortable with the decision we made despite this new information, or do we feel like we should repeal it and start over? Councillor Coutin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciated your report. I'm really happy to see the processes are going to change. Anytime something like this happens, it's an opportunity. I can't help but agree with James, and to me it's more about confidence in the process. I want to make sure that people are heard in the right venue at the right time in the right order. So I do appreciate that we are hearing it, considering it, having those questions answered now, but I do think that the proper approach might be just to have a do-over here.
Councillor Roots.
Mr. Mayor, Melanie, so this individual then, so he was asked if there was any more questions and did not submit anything then this week?
That's right. In attachment 3, you'll see just getting it up here. I do not know whether I can have a written response to you on the 10th, and we didn't receive anything today. So it leads me to believe there might be more questions.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Summer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly agree that process is really critical to be followed in these types of instances, and it was an unfortunate circumstance. I don't doubt that for a second. I guess what I also heard at the beginning was that we could have until next week, and I guess for me, part of the process has always been that if people can, they make their submissions and they're in the audience, and they can also add to that or seek further clarification or ask questions. And Mr. Benke was unable to be here tonight, if that's how I read it as well. So again, I guess to me there's two things. One is either we leave it in abeyance until next week, and perhaps if he can be here and you can get your questions, or we go back to step one, which is notice again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I understand he is working out of the area, so I'm not sure when he could be here physically.
Yeah.
Okay, so just for clarification, because we have two options here. One is that we just go ahead with it, considering the input we received this evening. Just go ahead and issue a notice of decision based on our decision we made at the public meeting. Or we direct staff to prepare a bylaw to repeal that bylaw and start over with a whole new public meeting. Am I hearing that there is a third option, that we can just pause for a week and wait to see if this individual sends us another communication with more questions and then make a final decision?
Right, so under the Planning Act, I have 15 days to issue a notice of decision from when a bylaw is passed. So that would be March 18th. So that gives us another week next week to see if additional comments come in. We can get answers to them and see how council feels. I understand where Councillor Carmody is coming from, that we're kind of doing this after the decision was already made. However, I feel that we're still considering his written submissions.
So if council decides to just put this in abeyance, oh, sorry, I'll come to you in a second here, puts this in abeyance and we wait to see if we get any comments, then we will relive, it'll be like Groundhog Day. We'll relive this very scenario over next Monday and then decide if we repeal the bylaw, ask for a new public meeting, or if we just go ahead with our decision. So that's the third option. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question and then a clarification, if you could. At some point with the new the new building plan that has just been produced over the last year, at one point you'd made reference to who could raise a concern. They had to be a builder, town. Does that apply to this situation?
Right, under the Planning Act, only certain people can appeal decisions, and that's the applicant, the person who owns land to which the bylaw would apply, specified persons and public bodies, and this, the resident with the concerns has no appeal rights.
Thank you. And then second to the, yeah, that's one. The principle with the public meeting and having the comments read there, the importance of that seems to be that other people could feed off that, or it may raise questions for other people in the audience that would generate more conversation as opposed to being read behind the scenes kind of thing by council. So yeah, I would fully support James with his request to redo the process. Thank you.
One thing to clarify is that the written submissions are not required before a public meeting. They are required before council makes a decision. So that we like them before a public meeting because it does help to have a healthy conversation and the proponent can be there and questions can be asked and there's a dialogue. But the written submissions are not required before the public meeting, just before the decision is made.
Okay, in light of that last comment, that kind of changes the process a little bit. So that individual wouldn't have been here in person. They were just submitting written submissions, which don't have to be submitted before council makes a decision. Is that what you're saying? At the public meeting?
No, written submissions don't have to be submitted at the public meeting. That's right. Just before council makes a decision.
Councillor Herman.
Thank you, Mayor Service. And we made a decision, we passed the bylaw without referencing these comments. So right back to square one for me. I mean, we're in contravention of the Planning Act, so I see no alternative for us but to roll this back and start over.
Okay, any other questions or comments? So we've got three options. Three options now, correct? So option number one, council just directs staff to issue a notice of decision for the bylaw, the decision that was made at the public meeting. So in light of the written comments here, we're still comfortable with the decision we made and we move forward. Option two is that we just go into abeyance and wait a week until this individual can provide further comments. And then we can make another decision next Monday, whether we want to issue the notice or whether we want to repeal the bylaw and start over again. Or we can decide right now, this evening, to direct staff to prepare a bylaw to repeal bylaw 1728/25 at the March 17th, 2025 council meeting and issue a new notice of public meeting. So I guess oh, did you have another question? No? Is anybody comfortable with making a motion for the first one? That we're directing staff to issue the notice of decision and just move this one forward. Okay. Number two is to just have a week of abeyance, allow this individual to put further questions or written submissions in front of us, and then reconsider this whole issue next Monday. Anybody want to move that one? I guess I know where we're headed with this. Who would like to move option three? Moved by Councillor Carmody, seconded by Councillor Coutu, that council directs staff to prepare a bylaw to repeal bylaw 1728/25 at the March 17th, 2025 council meeting and issue a new notice of public meeting. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, thanks, Melanie. And Catherine, thanks for coming. Okay, next we have Public Works Monthly Activity Report. Chris Mantha is at the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. All right, monthly report for January and February. So first off, I wanted to recognize a staff member, and I had to do it out of the report because the particular staff member reads everything that I put in the reports. So I did get a letter from the Association of Municipal Clerks and Treasurers of Ontario to acknowledge Dawn Rakowski's completion of the Certified Municipal Officers Maintenance Program, so she can carry on her designation until December 31st, 2027. The mission of the AMCTO is to deliver professional growth, networking, advocacy, and leadership to support and strengthen the knowledge, skills, and capabilities of municipal professionals now and into the future. The AMCTO represents excellence in local government management leadership, with 2,200 plus members working in municipalities across the province. And I'm really happy to say that Dawn is a proud member of this group of municipal experts, and Dawn provides excellence to our Public Works Department. So just wanted to congratulate Dawn on that. All right, snuck that in. Okay, so now on to the monthly activity report. Another recognition for Teddy Suko. So he's working towards his Certified Road Supervisor's designation through the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors. And as part of that, he had to attend a 5-day course down in Oakville for general construction inspection. And I have to admit, I didn't have to take this course when I was doing my CRS, so I was worried for him. I looked at the course description. I thought, oh, this looks hard. Teddy did a fantastic job. He got 88%, which is outstanding. So the emphasis on this course was interpreting construction drawings, contract documents, and becoming familiar with inspectors' responsibilities on construction projects. Some of the lessons included record keeping, site safety, traffic control, and there was even a day-long field trip. So this is a really great course that Teddy succeeded in, and it bodes well for what we're trying to do, which is to do more in-house works. So empowering our staff to learn these skills that they're going to need in the future is key. So really happy for Teddy. Now under our projects, Public Works Office expansion, I made a note there that we do have a new schedule. We're looking at the end of April for completion, so it's about 6 weeks longer than what we thought, which in a year-long project really didn't surprise me. So we're looking at completion instead of mid-March, which is now, end of April, and then the completion of the parking lot paving in June. So just a slight adjustment to that schedule. On page 16 of the report, I put in there a 2024 maintenance overview. I thought that was important to point out to members of council. This was Teddy's first year looking after the maintenance end of the budget, and by all accounts, I thought he did a really good job. He hit on the key focuses of our maintenance plan, and he stayed within budget. And I think he did a good job when you look at patching, resurfacing, concrete, the roadside brushing, culverts, bridges, ditching, guide rails, storm management ponds. Really did a good job of getting a lot of work done, but being responsible to the budget line items as well. So just wanted to point that out. And then under section 3, 2025 budget, we're really gearing up for the adoption of the budget. So I thought I would just show what's been going on behind the scenes. So the sanitary sewer upgrade that we have planned through the Pinehurst Estates, that's in conjunction with our HUSIF, successful HUSIF grant. So we're working on that. I made a note in here about securing an easement for the works that need to be done. We have that easement in place now, so that's great. We have the legal means to go in and do the work. So we're moving forward in that regard. And then we have staff working on duty to consult with Indigenous communities and other ministry requirements requested by the government as part of the grant application. So we're positioning ourselves so that when budget is adopted, we can hit the ground running. Under Town Hall office renovation, the document is complete. We've reviewed it once. We're going to do one more review, and then that project will be ready to proceed to tender. Norman Street in and out for access to the Comfort Station and Algonquin Trail parking. We have two design options, and essentially we're waiting for budget approval to move forward. Black Bay Road upgrades. This is the joint project between BEI Construction and the town. Right now we're working on the budget development between the Public Works Department and BEI Construction. It's moving forward well, and we'll be ready for construction as soon as the budget's adopted. Civic Center parking lot improvements, the design work is ready, so we're just ready to proceed to tender once we have the budget. PXO installations on Herman Street at the Kittyland parking lot and on Herman Street at Doran Road. So we're pursuing an Infrastructure Canada Active Transportation funding grant for this project. And I've also reached out to the County of Renfrew to complete a traffic study at that intersection. So we're looking at it as a PXO installation, but I thought it would be best to get the County of Renfrew's input on, seeing as it is their road, because there is a possibility that you could put a four-way stop condition there instead of a PXO, which would serve the same purpose. So just going to make sure we have the County of Renfrew's input on that before we jump ahead on it. The water tower rehabilitation on Water Tower Road. So we have had a project kickoff meeting February 25th between the town, JP2G Consultants, and the Ontario Clean Water Agency. We're ready to move forward with that project as well upon budget approval. And then under the disinfection byproducts reduction study, that's the THMs, which are trihalomethanes, and the HAAs, which are halocetic acids. You'll see more on this in the upcoming reports that we have, the water and wastewater reports. But we do have this engineering study is being managed by Aqua. We've held the kickoff meeting at the end of February, and they're right now in the process of working on the RFP to retain engineered services to find a solution to those exceedances that we have. And then we have building condition assessment. Again, we are ready to move forward with that, just waiting on budget approval. Under winter maintenance, great job by the staff again. I think it's been a busy winter, and by all accounts, I think we've done a really good job with the roads and sidewalks and keeping everything moving around the town safely. And moving forward to civic properties, just wanted to make note there. So in 2024, we had a budgeted item for the elevator repairs at the Civic Center, and that project carried over into 2025, and we're ready to move forward with that work in June and July. So it'll be good to have that elevator all fixed up and up to code. And then under water and sanitary, the only item I had there, which was good news, was we've only had one water main break this winter. Unfortunately, it occurred at the intersection of Roy and Murphy, which resulted in some of our new pavement needing to be pulled, but it actually, where the break occurred was not due to construction. It was just where the older items meet the new stuff. And unfortunately, we had a break there, but one water main break is pretty good. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, lots going on. Questions by council. Councillor Roots.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chris, for the very thorough report. Just under operations for Zamboni issues, can you give us where we're at with that?
Yes. So my understanding there is when the new ice resurfacer was purchased, they came and had a half-day training course on the new ice resurfacer. My understanding is the training wasn't done appropriately. So we've had the manufacturer come back, train the staff again. They were having issues with getting into the corners of the boards. But my understanding in talking to Ted and the staff, the senior operators, is that those issues have been put to rest. They have it sorted out. I think they were either going too slow or too fast. They weren't operating the piece of equipment properly. That's my understanding. So it needed a bit more training, but it's been straightened out.
Glad to hear that. Thank you.
Councillor Coutu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chris. I just wanted to shout out and say thank you so much for all the social media engagement you've done. I think it really helps our residents clue into what's going on around the town, but also thank you very much for the hazards of snow play, putting that out there again. Thanks.
Other questions of the report? Okay, and another big congratulations again to Don and Teddy for their qualifications and outstanding achievement. All of that helps to move the town to a better place, having better qualified workers and engaged workers and enthusiastic workers. So that's good to hear. Good to hear that the renovations, or not renovations, but the the upgrade of the Public Works Department will be ready soon. I'm really looking forward to getting into my new office. I figure if I say it enough, it'll happen.
It's gonna happen, Scott.
Just ignore him.
Deputy Mayor Saber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris, looking down at your work orders under water and sanitary, where we say that 47% was achieved under water and 50% under sanitary. There's probably a really good reason for that, because numbers like that don't look great when you first see them, but were there some things going on that they needed to focus on other areas, just because normally the target is much, much higher. You're usually like bang on. So just a question as to why that looks like that.
That's a great question, and I don't have the answer. So I will get the answer and give it to you. But I'm sure there is a logical explanation. They're usually pretty good with work orders, so I'm not too concerned.
Thanks, Chris.
Anything else? And yeah, thanks to you and all of your staff for keeping the roads and sidewalks clean. I know that you guys do a great job here in the town of Petawawa. All right, if there's nothing else, I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Councillor Roots, seconded by Councillor Donovan, that the Public Works monthly report be accepted as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, next we have PW-05-2025 Petawawa Drinking Water System 2024 Annual Report and Petawawa Wastewater System 2024 Annual Report. Chris, you're up again.
All right, thanks, Mayor Service. So yes, these two reports are requirements to be presented annually. They're regulatory requirements, as stated in the report. I'll start with the water report first. Basically, the water system serves more than 10,000 residences here in the town of Petawawa, and the distribution system consists of network of piping, 3 towers, 2 booster pumping stations, and the distribution system consists of about 4,756 service connections. 4,606 of these are residential. So, and we also have 606 fire hydrants. So it's a large distribution system, but I'm proud to say that our Aqua contract, the staff are doing a really good job. From what I can see in the report, under the compliance report card, we had 100% through the MECP. We had no Ministry of Labor inspections, and we did have the 4 non-compliance under the adverse water quality, and I'll come to that in a moment. And then we had a few community complaints for service leaks, low pressures, high pressures, color, and odor. These are fairly normal items that Aqua staff go and investigate. Many times, like discoloration is usually caused by hot water tanks that are rusting or getting beyond their life. But the Aqua staff go speak to the residents and calm down any concerns with regard to water quality, because the water is always top quality. So I'm never really worried about those things, but we do have great staff that go and respond to those community complaints. There were no spills, and in 2024 we had 6 main breaks. So under the adverse quality incidents, that's where we come into the HAA exceedance. And what I touched on in my monthly report was the study that we have ongoing. So this, we started learning about this, at least I did, in late 2023, 2024. So we do have the study started now through Aqua. We're hiring engineered services to look into new plant processes to deal with the HAA exceedances. However, when we do have the exceedance, we're taking all the necessary steps, reporting it to all the necessary regulatory bodies, and they're not rated as highly as an actual non-compliance. So we have time to address this issue, and we are moving towards that. So I'd like to look at the whole instead of just focusing on those the HAA exceedances. It's not I'd like to say that there are other water plants that are dealing with this same issue. It all depends on where you're getting your water from, your source water. So it's just something we have to deal with and implement the proper plant processes to bring it down. So the limit is 80 UGs per liter, and you know we're at 95, 108, so 101. We're pretty close to the limit. We're just a little bit over. I know in speaking with the staff down at Aqua, they've pretty much exhausted all the internal process changes we can do with the plant. So we have to look at other methods, whether it's a different way of injecting chlorine into the system, or other plant processes, but we'll sort that out as part of this engineered services review that we're doing right now. Okay, but other than that, as far as the flows, like the plant is running really well. We're not seeing our flow rates where we're worried about having to do a plant expansion. We're well within the capacities of the plant right now, which is really good to know. Gives us some more time to plan for future expansion and of course to put money away into reserves for when that day comes. So as far as the water system, looking really good. And there's the maintenance end of things on page 34 of the report, where you have a breakdown of the capital works that were done and distribution maintenance activities throughout the year. So no concerns on that. Take questions if you want now for the water one before we go to the wastewater.
Yeah, sure, good idea. Questions from council on the 2024 water report? Councillor Roots.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Chris, it's interesting to see, like, when you look at the past years and and even with the wastewater too, the flows and capacity was still very, very good. So good to see that, and even with the growth of the town over the last 5-6 years, and our flow and capacity is very good. So thank you.
Any other? Councillor Coutu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and apologies, Chris, if you mentioned this. What would be the timeline for the turnaround on the engineering report?
We're hoping by midway through this year to have the report completed and then be working on next steps, which are implementing the plan to deal with that exceedance. So I'll be back with further updates on that. Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, extend a thanks out to our crew at Aqua as well. Always nice, clean water when you turn on your taps. Some people might be alarmed about this exceedance, but your explanation leads us to believe that it's something that can be easily managed. And we're taking the steps with the engineering study to make sure we implement processes to bring that level down to where it meets standards, I guess. Okay, we'll go to the wastewater report.
All right, for the wastewater report, similar good news, I would think. The last Ministry of Environment inspection was in February 2015, and I think that says a lot about how the plant is managed. There were no Ministry of Labor inspections. We did have 2 non-compliance issues. One was an E. coli exceedance, and one was a bypass due to an equipment malfunction. And then we had 3 sewer issues, which were community complaints, no spills, and just the 1 bypass. So on the bypass end, I can give a little bit of a further update on that. Should also be noted that the plant is running at about 50% capacity on average. So again, we have some time and some runway before we need to look at upgrading the plant capacity, which is good news. Okay, so for the E. coli, we'll start with that one, the E. coli exceedance. We have a new system that was put in 2024, which is a UV system, which is kind of the last process before the effluent water goes back into the river. And what was happening there was the water was being pushed through the system a little bit too quickly. So they've adjusted the UV system to ensure that that final step in the process where the water is flowing through the UV system and all those little bugs the last little bugs get taken care of before it goes out to the river. It's working better now. So I think we have that process worked out. Again, it was a new system. It required some work by the staff, and also bringing up technical services from the installers of that system just to iron out, fine tune it. But I think we have that worked out. And then on the screw pump failure. Yes, so again, on the secondary side of the plant, we did have an issue with a pump, which resulted in, I believe it was 17 cubic meters, which is about 4,500 gallons, that was released, unfortunately in a 14-minute time frame. But I will say that was a call-in. That operator arrived at the plant in 14 minutes to deal with the issue. The good news is that the bypass occurred on the secondary side of the plant, which means that water had already gone through all the primary treatments. So it wasn't raw sewage. It was just effluent that hadn't gone through the final UV disinfection. Again, not ideal, but not a worst case scenario, and a very small bypass. Our goal is always to have no bypasses. Typically, what we do see at the wastewater plant, we sometimes do have a bypass if we have a really, really heavy rain event where the sewers just get overwhelmed, and that does happen at other plants as well, and that has happened here at the town, but our goal is always no bypasses. But overall, the report, again, similar to the water report, I think it's the plant is being really well run. I'm really happy with all the work that the staff do, testing, making sure that all our ministry, all the checks and balances through the ministry are always being dealt with efficiently. And yeah, I think we're in really good shape as far as our two plants are concerned. I will certainly say that, I think, Mr. Mayor, you alluded to the, turning on the water. It's, some people might they don't realize what's going on behind the scenes. It's an extremely technical process going on at these plants. We are very fortunate to have such trained staff at Aqua looking after these critical pieces of our infrastructure. So I'm happy to work with Brad Sweet and Jimmy Mones on a daily basis. They've been really good to deal with. That's it.
Okay, questions on the wastewater report? Deputy Mayor Summer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it was about 8 or 10 years ago we had an update. This is when JP2G used to come to our meetings as well. And we talked about the expansion and the growth of the town and whatnot. And we've certainly grown faster than the predictions. And it's really nice to see that we're not even at 50% of flows, which is excellent, which I think bodes well that we've got many years potentially to come, and as well as significant growth that can still occur within the town without significant upgrades. So thanks to the team, and yeah, every now and again an issue will happen, and it just always is a good reminder to me that when I'm out swimming in the Ottawa River, don't gulp it down like it's your water from home. Thank you very much.
No problem. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, so again, thank the staff as well for all the work that they do down there. And I would encourage everybody, if you get a chance, go take a tour of the wastewater treatment facility and watch what happens after you flush the toilet. I know it's not pretty or it doesn't smell that great, but it's very interesting to see where everything goes and how it gets treated before it goes out into the Ottawa River. Okay, no other questions? Then I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, second by Councillor Carmody, that the Petawawa Drinking Water System 2024 Annual Report be accepted as presented, and that the Petawawa Wastewater System 2024 Annual Report be accepted as presented. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have PW-06-2025 Blue Box Transition to Full Producer Responsibility Update. Trevor is going to come up and let us hear about this one with Chris's backup.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So from liquid waste to solid waste, I'm here tonight. Thought about that in the last 30 seconds. So here tonight to just give you an update on the Blue Box transition to the full or extended producer responsibility model. We've been here before in the last year and so with other reports. So this is just meant to be an update and recommendation to be accepted as information. So I won't spend too much time on the background because we presented it in past reports. The key thing coming out of that section is that our transition date is scheduled for March 28th, which is fast approaching. And then as part of the past staff report PW 21-2023, council had approved that we would opt out of continuing the Blue Box program and just hand it over to Circular Materials. So that will happen starting after March 28th. So since staff report PW 21-2023, staff has been busy preparing for the Blue Box transition. We've been working with our partner municipalities that we share a solid waste collection contract with, City of Pembroke and Township Laurentian Valley, as the Blue Box transition will have impact to that service that we provide. And we've participated in several virtual meetings or working groups that have been hosted by Circular Materials to help municipalities. They say help. We may disagree sometimes, but to help us understand this Blue Box transition, provide information, be a forum for us to ask questions. And also we've responded to several requests for information from Circular Materials over the last year, just providing them more information on our program. Number of stops, type of multi-residential properties that we have, those kind of things. The private roads was another one. I believe we reported on all those RFIs in our monthly Public Works reports. So no more sitting on the table right now, thank goodness. So to date, based on the information we know and have received from Circular Materials and or the retained contractor for this service, the updates I can provide to you tonight. Again, our transition date is coming up on March 28th, 2025. This transition date also coincides with the expiration of the town's waste collection contract with Miller Waste. However, our staff, along with our counterparts in Pembroke, Laurentian Valley, and Miller Waste, are currently working to negotiate an extension. Miller Waste has expressed interest in extending that contract. So we will be back with another staff report for council approval on a pending extension. Miller Waste was also awarded the Circular Materials contract to provide the Blue Box collection service in Area 3 catchment, which includes the town of Petawawa. So that was good news that we have the same contractor providing both services right now. Circular Materials provided staff in January with what they have for promotion and education material, which we can use to kind of help educate our residents on this transition, and just material that we can use to post on our social media website platforms. We were also provided the new contact information that we will direct any resident or eligible source if they have inquiries or miscollection, that kind of thing. So we will provide our front end staff with some instruction just before the transition date as to how to field public inquiries, because certain ones relating to garbage, organics, bulk waste, and non-eligible recycling will remain with the town to address. Anything that's recycling related to a residential property will go to the contact that Circular Materials has provided. So again, we'll provide some instruction for our front end staff just how to field those calls. The Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery Centre has also entered into an agreement with Circular Materials to continue the production of the collection calendars, which I believe the new ones or the latest ones were just issued. So this was done as just a way to kind of harmonize the collection calendars. There's also a similar agreement that the Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery Centre could enter into for post-transition for that same service. They have not yet entered into that agreement at this point in time. And then we are still waiting on Circular Materials to release details on this new common collection system, which will start Jan 1 of 2026. So when we have more details on that, we would like to come back to council and just provide you that update, because we do feel there could be a change to some of the items that we currently collect in our yellow bins, being scrap metal and small appliances. We don't know, again, we don't know what the new harmonized blue box material list will be as part of the common collection system, but based on what we've seen, we anticipate we will have to make some changes to what residents are currently used to. So financial implications of this transition will be reported at a future staff report. We just would like to bring that back with the contract extension and just kind of look at that as a whole versus trying to report it out in this one. So this report was just meant to tell you the transition is coming and residents will be fielded to a different contact if they have missed collections. So I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Okay, thanks, Trevor, for all your work on this. You've clarified what is somewhat of a bit of a muddy water situation here with this whole transition program. But I think the good news for us and all of our residents is that at the end of March this year, all the way to January 1st, 2026, there should be no visible change to the collection and anything that we're putting out on the curb. Is that correct?
That is what we've been told, that the transitions should be seamless. So we'll see. We've heard some stories from other municipalities, but having Miller Waste as the contractor retained by Circular Materials, they are familiar with the routes, they are familiar with the area. So this should help keep complaints or issues at a minimum.
I guess we probably don't want to hear what's going on in other municipalities. We're Petawawa and we'll deal with what's coming. Okay, Councillor Kerman.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Thanks, Trevor, for the report. So we're hopeful everything's going to roll out quite smoothly, and assuming it doesn't, who are people? Do people like get in touch with you, or what's the process if things don't roll out as smoothly as we hope?
Okay, so if a resident has an issue, let's say the obvious one, miscollection, then Circular Materials has provided a Miller Waste contact. So there is a phone number and an email, which I do believe I noted in the report. So we will train our staff to ask certain questions. If the resident obviously is a residential property, then they know they're an eligible source. If the issue relates to the recycling, then we can advise them who to contact at Miller Waste. So again, in the staff report, there's a 1-855 number along with area 3 at millerwaste.ca has been the contact information set up by Circular Materials.
Further questions on the report? Everybody's good? So we're hoping, I like your word seamless. We're hoping for a seamless transition. Okay, I need a motion just to accept this report as information. Moved by Councillor Coutu, seconded by Councillor Driscoll. The council accepts this staff report as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. And now the moment everybody has been waiting for. PW-07-2025 Off-Road Vehicle Bylaw 1597/23, the Phase 2 review. And Chris has brought in some more backup.
Yes.
But this is Don's report. So Don, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Service. So I am coming back to seek direction from council regarding the future of our off-road vehicle bylaw. So in 2023, we went through phase 1, which was establishing our town of Petawawa designated routes and county of Renfrew designated intersections. In 2024, we moved on to phase 2, which was developing the Algonquin Trail off-road vehicle access routes, which was, again, more of the rural area of the municipality. Phase 1 and Phase 2 only permitted off-road vehicles and all-terrain vehicles on our roads. It excluded extreme terrain vehicles and off-road motorcycles. We received communication from the Renfrew County ATV Club expressing their interest in seeing council move forward with Phase 3 of the ORV bylaw. And what they would like to see is that all Petawawa residents have access to the Algonquin Trail directly from their residence without having to trailer their machines. If council's considering a Phase 3, like expanding our designated routes, we would like to conduct road inspection reports on those proposed routes so that we have a baseline for comparative purposes and to identify and mitigate any hazards before it's opened up to off-road vehicles. I did provide the same concerns previously from the OPP, as well as updated our collision statistics. There were only 2 collisions in 2024 with off-road vehicles on municipal roadways. In 24, we had 22 calls for service, excluding the city of Pembroke. So that is Upper Ottawa Valley OPP detachment area. Unfortunately, it's not just specific to Petawawa, but a couple of the calls that they were able to identify for us was we had 1 impaired. There were 4 provincial offenses specifically to the off-road motorcycles. So basically more than likely operating on the road, which they're not permitted to. And we had 1 traffic complaint regarding an off-road vehicle and another traffic complaint regarding a dirt bike. I wanted to highlight we did some speed awareness monitoring on the Algonquin Trail, both within the 20-kilometer-hour zone and the 50-kilometer-hour zone. Just wanting to show you that there is a need for enforcement, speed enforcement in this area. The OPP, they did conduct their SAVE team, conducted speed patrol in November, but again, it was a quieter time of year, poor weather, so there weren't that many interactions. But the OPP SAVE team are going to come back in the spring to conduct another focus patrol. So in May of 2024, the County of Renfrew amended their bylaw for use on the Algonquin Trail, and they now allow the use of off-road motorcycles. They do need to be properly licensed and insured and have a valid trail permit. In December 24, the Algonquin Trail has now been opened through Garrison Petawawa, so you can travel from Smiths Falls to Deep River on your off-road vehicle. Following our adoption of Phase 2, I personally received very few complaints. Most inquiries that I receive are from people wanting to know, can I drive mine on the road where I live? They want to be able to do that. And then I had 1 call from someone who wanted to know why they couldn't ride their off-road motorcycle on the road. Because again, our bylaw restricted that. And we did receive 1 written letter, which I believe the clerk has already distributed to council, requesting again a Phase 3 so that they can drive to the trail without having to trailer their off-road vehicle. So currently, the Ontario Regulation 31603, which is the operation of off-road vehicles on highways, so extreme terrain vehicles and off-road motorcycles can only be operated if the municipality specifically permits the operation of that particular class of vehicle by adopting a bylaw to do that. But again, they do need to be licensed, insured. They can't have passengers. They have to have a valid driver's license, a minimum M2 license, and they must wear a helmet. So what we are looking for direction from council is, does council want to expand the existing designated ORV routes? And if so, how should it be expanded? Secondly, does council want to allow the operation of off-road motorcycles and/or extreme terrain vehicles on municipal roads? And lastly, does council want to communicate with residents via public survey prior to making any amendments to the ORV bylaw for phase 3? I did outline within options for consideration concerning our current bylaw, that if we're going to open it up, that Appendix A be amended to include the addition of Murphy Road from Doran Road to Highway 17. This would be to alleviate some of the off-road vehicle traffic that's on Black Bay Road for people who are crossing Highway 17 to go to like the end of Black Bay Road and the Barron Canyon Trail system. That Appendix B, the County of Renfrew designated routes, remain unchanged. And Appendix C, which again is the Algonquin Trail off-road vehicle access route. So again, if council's looking to go forward with the phase 3, staff again would like to see that it's for people who live on those routes, drive from their house to the trail to their house. Again, trying to alleviate traffic and being respectful of your neighbors. And I just provided a couple other roads within that section. Also suggesting that off-road vehicle access be restricted from traveling along Petawawa Boulevard from 291 Petawawa Boulevard northwest to Puckett Road. So again, the Algonquin Trail runs through that area, so we don't need to have the off-road vehicles through the busiest section of Petawawa Boulevard. Any county roads, we would need to get permission from the county. And also again, noting that our off-road vehicle bylaw does not apply to any roads on the garrison nor to any private roads.
Okay, thanks, Don, for obviously a lot of work went into this. So it doesn't leave a lot of room for questions, but if I could just get you to maybe provide a more fulsome definition of what an extreme terrain vehicle might be. I know there is a picture of what looks like a gator, but I have a feeling that that's a broader category. And before we make a decision on whether we're going to allow them, I think it'd be good for council to know just what that definition encompasses, if you could.
Yeah, it would be typically vehicle with 6 wheels, so like an Argo. You may have seen those around, but not on a road.
Okay. So that is the broader definition. A 6-wheel vehicle is an extreme terrain vehicle. Again, I like the fact that the off-road motorcycle category was very precisely defined in terms of what they need before they can get on the trail. And I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but maybe you did, that the county has approved extreme terrain and off-road motorcycles on Algonquin Trail in their updated bylaw. Is that correct?
I was just aware of off-road motorcycles, not specifically XORV. The conversation I had with the county, they didn't mention that.
Okay, I'll open it up for questions from council. Councillor Coutu.
Thank you, Don. There's a ton of work went into this. So I have a couple comments and then a question. I'm interested in a process to identify where it's really reasonable to extend access. I know we heard from a resident who's 750 meters away from the trail, has to trailer it. So there's a lot of sort of easy wins there, maybe to have maybe a process to review where there's rural roads that don't have access and it makes sense. I think that would be, pardon me, a good process. I just wanted to read out for everyone the concerns from the OPP. So one of them being that ORVs cannot drive faster than 20 kilometers an hour in a 50 kilometer hour zone under provincial regulations. So ORV drivers drive considerably slower than the flow of traffic, creating a risk of incidents. So in an environment with curbs, sidewalks, multi-use pathways, no shoulder for the ORVs to pull over and allow vehicles to pass. And the OPP also identified that ORVs are not designed for asphalt roads and can have difficulty maneuvering in a busy traffic environment. And generally, ORVs don't have access to urban centers. So those concerns hit with me when we're talking about, say, Murphy Road, somewhere we've just urbanized, where like there's a lot of traffic there, like a ton of traffic. So I can't imagine putting ORVs on that road, but I would be really interested in hearing about maybe an alternate access road. You know, if Black Bay Road is experiencing a lot of ORV traffic, there might be another road to identify that isn't curbed, isn't newly renovated, isn't urbanized, isn't designed for children, you know, to transit to school on. With the new PXO we put there, I don't see it. So I'll just leave with a question and I'll put it to my fellow councillors. Is there an intention to perform a road review on all the roads from phase 2? So just to check on the conditions of those roads following a season of phase 2. Thank you.
Yeah. I was gonna say yes, the director said yes. So we did do the review beforehand, before implementing phase 2. You're talking post, yes. Mm-hmm.
Just before I turn it over for more questions, just another point of clarification. Before we implemented phase 2, was there a public survey done to affected residents along any of the roads in phase 2?
Yes.
Councillor Carmen.
Thank you, Mayor Service. And thank you, Don, for bringing this report forward. I am definitely in favor of proceeding with the phase 3. And I think that we've had very little in the line of complaints with phase 2. And the number of calls for service from the OPP for a detachment the size of Upper Ottawa Valley is virtually nil for that geography that big. And I really see no reason to not move ahead with the phase 3 to allow our citizens to have better access to Algonquin Trail. I'm not in favor of having off-road motorcycles on residential streets or the extreme terrain vehicles, although they're not as big an issue, but certainly the off-road motorcycles are not designed to be on our streets. I don't think they just shouldn't be there, and not to mention they're often quite noisy. And as far as communicating to residents via public survey prior to implementation of phase 3, I don't think there's a whole lot of value in doing that. We've communicated prior to phase 2 already, and the difference between phase 2 and 3 can't easily be spelled out in a simple question to put to residents. It's like you would have to define, okay, here's phase 2, read these 5 paragraphs, here's phase 3, read this whole page. Now tell me what you think of the 2. People probably aren't going to do that. You know, if something can be boiled down to a simple question or a yes/no answer or something, great to go for public input on that. But generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of government by plebiscite. Back to the OPP concerns. One thing I'd mention, even in built-up residential areas with urban cross sections where you've got curbs and sidewalks and that type of thing, we have garbage trucks and recycle trucks going up and down these streets all the time, and they're often doing less than 20 kilometers an hour and start, stop, and traffic goes around them all the time, and we have no trouble with it. So I don't see where, like, off-road vehicles are much smaller than recycle trucks or garbage trucks, and I don't see a problem with traffic getting around them. And the other concerns, yeah, they're theoretically concerns, but they haven't really borne out in reality. So I'm not terribly concerned about that. So I'm definitely in favor of going ahead with phase 3, having staff do the road survey, identify the routes that are, or the routes like certainly Petawawa Boulevard is not appropriate for vehicles to be on there, but, I'd probably identify the ones that we would exclude and bring that back for council consideration. Thank you.
Okay, just one other point of clarification. So the survey that went out for phase 2 just went to homes that were along the affected route. Not everybody in town received a question about whether they wanted this to happen or not, just affected residents.
That's correct.
Okay,
Sent
thanks.
to the 5 areas that we had.
Yeah, so anybody in phase 3 would not have been surveyed for any reason. Okay. Deputy Mayor Sabrin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just thinking it might be easier if we're going to survey to just identify which roads are not to be considered, because I know reading through this, I do get a bit confused. But that's maybe just me. I guess first and foremost, it's a hard no for me for extreme terrain and off-road motorcycles. I don't think we're there yet, and I don't know if we want to be there, but I've always operated by the crawl, walk, run, and phase 1, 2, and now 3 has supported that. I am in favor of the public survey to gauge the residents who will be affected. We're going to be in their neighborhoods. Might as well do that, as well as the road survey. Like Councillor Carmody, collisions calls for service are absolutely negligible, considering the amount of off-terrain vehicles have just steadily been increasing. I know when I drive in the municipalities, on the rural places, very rarely do I come across an off-road vehicle, and certainly taking a moment to pause and then pass is always a good thing. So anyways, phase 1 and phase 2 seem to have been very good, so I'm definitely in support of going to phase 3. Thank you.
Councillor Roots.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm in favor of the phase 3. I do think we have a bit of a speeding issue there, as mentioned, on the boulevard area. I do think we have a speed issue there, and we do see some reports, but that's something that can be managed. And in regards to, I think we should do a bit of a public survey or get that information out, our intentions. And in regards to the extreme vehicles and motorcycles, as Councillor Carmody said, these vehicles are pretty, everyone's pretty cautious that I see when they're operating these type of vehicles, so I really don't have a big problem with that so far. Thank you.
Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm 100% I'm in favor of going to phase 3. I think that this is a great service to our municipality to allow them to leave their homes. The common sense would dictate that, as people have noted, if you live a couple hundred meters from the trail, it makes no sense to have to trailer your vehicle to use the trail. I'll echo what Councillor Carmody said about all the OPP concerns. I mean, they are there, but I don't think any of them really are much of an issue. The dirt bike issue, the off-road motorcycle, that's going to be a tough one. You're still going to have people use them. They already are using them right now, since they are allowed on the Algonquin Trail. So you're going to come back to the same issue of, if I live on Mary Street, I'm allowed to use it on the trail, but I'm not allowed to use it on the road. I think you're going to get people to use it anyways, but that's kind of the situation we're in right now. I don't think that we need to spend the money to send out a survey to everybody. I think even an online or public information notice, because correct me if I'm wrong, this would be every urban household in the municipality. So I don't know what a cost would be looking for that.
I would just be looking at online to reduce costs.
Okay, yeah, so what would the timeline be for one of those?
I would say 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna get the same feedback as we got on survey 1 and survey 2, people concerned about noise or access or more people on the road, but I just think that if we are moving as a municipality and we want to promote ATV tourism and snowmobile tourism, we are doing a disservice to our municipality by not allowing the people of Petawawa to use our roads when we want people to come in and use our trails on ATVs. So that is my position. I will be supporting it.
Councillor Gunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too support phase 3 rolling out. I don't see that we need to look at anything to limit with regards to residential streets. Let's list that they can do Petawawa Boulevard, and then the remainder of the town would have access through their streets. One of the main concerns with phase 2 was that we were worried about racing around in the neighborhoods themselves as opposed to using the streets for access. There's been no reports of that brought forward, so I'm anticipating there was no racing around neighborhoods. There was one, okay. Yeah, so I would certainly fully support it. It makes sense just to get down the street to where you're going. Thank you.
Councillor Coutu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree that a survey is a good idea. I think in a situation like this, information gathering is important. Just because you don't have the information in front of you doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just because no one called into the town or the OPP doesn't mean there aren't issues we don't know about. So I think for us to make an informed decision, going out to the community, asking for that feedback, I think that's due diligence. Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Okay, so I'm hearing a lot of support for phase 3. I'll just weigh in on my opinions here. I'll start with the off-road extreme terrain vehicles and off-road motorcycles. I agree with Deputy Mayor Sabner, I think, who said they were allowed sometimes. Was it you? Somebody mentioned the noise. The other concern I have with the off-road motorcycles is right now the ones, and I spend a lot of time on the Algonquin Trail, the ones that are using it do not have licenses, don't have headlights, don't have taillights. It seems to be a bit of an area of abuse in terms of those off-road motorcycles. So my concern is if we open up our streets, it'll be those same users who don't have licenses, don't have lights, don't have signal lights, they'll now be on our streets. So I'm a little concerned about opening it up to that category of user just because just based on experience, they seem to be the ones that are abusing the rules that are on the trail right now. Same for me with the extreme terrain vehicles, just the word extreme makes me a little nervous about having them on my streets where there's kids walking to school and other things like that. So I would be against the off-road motorcycles and extreme terrain vehicles. I agree with everybody who said that public input is important. I think it is important, especially now that we're moving into the more urbanized areas of our town. And as Don said, it's only an online survey and it only takes 2 or 3 weeks and it's not going to add cost to this whole process. So I think it's important to hear from especially those residents in more urban areas that we're proposing to move into, that we hear what they think. I am concerned about the OPP reports about having vehicles on a curbed, especially raised curb streets. Also, our insurers have cautioned us about putting off-road vehicles onto streets that have a raised curb. So like Murphy Road, Civic Center Road, Volunteer Way. I'm sure there's a couple others there. And I know Councillor Carmody mentioned garbage trucks are on there and sometimes traffic has to go around them, but garbage trucks are a lot more visible than a smaller ATV, which may cause problems with cars having to always sweep around and pass. We are setting speed limits that if you are on an urban road, you can only go 20 kilometers an hour. So if there is an off-road vehicle on a raised curb road going 20, it will cause traffic to back up. And as Councillor Coutu said, roads like Murphy Road, Civic Center Road, especially during peak times around school bus pick up and drop off, those 2 streets are extremely busy during those times. So I think it would be, as our insurers and the OPP said, it would be a bit of a liability risk for us to put those vehicles on curb streets. Anywhere else, I think it's important that we allow our residents to have access to the Algonquin Trail, no matter where they live. And if you are coming from somewhere that, you know, you look down Murphy Road and think this is my quickest way there, well, if we say you can't go there, or you just take a left and you go down Dorn, or you take another street to get to the Algonquin Trail, it's not that big of a detour considering right now there's places where you don't have access. So all we're saying is stay off our raised curb areas for safety and liability reasons. There's always another, or should this get passed, there's going to be a lot more routes and access to get to the Algonquin Trail. I am somewhat concerned about the speeding statistics. I know that when we hear from our ATV and all the other clubs, And I know there are many, many users on the Algonquin Trail that follow the rules and respect the rules. But it is alarming to see those speed statistics where it's sometimes 86% of the riders are above the speed limit. And the maximum speeds are very concerning too. The maximum speeds recorded were 100 kilometers and 95 kilometers an hour. These are in 50-kilometer-an-hour zones. And I know from experience, I drive up and down the boulevard quite a bit, and I'm often passed by snowmobiles, ATVs, motorcycles, and I'm going 80 or more. And even in the 50 zone between Murphy Road and Dorn Road, you're getting passed by snowmobiles and ATVs. I'm hopeful that it's not our residents that are doing that, that it's maybe folks from out of town that aren't aware of our speed limits or maybe aren't tracking what they're supposed to be doing. But it is somewhat alarming. I'm thinking it's something we either need the OPP to increase their patrolling. And I know the county had a company that they had contracted out to do some patrols. And maybe, Don, you can mention something about what they've been doing, if you know. And I can check at the county to see if there's a year-end report in terms of what that company has found in their reports. But in the end, I think it's important that our residents have access to the trail no matter where they live, just not on the raised curb roads and not the extreme terrain and the off-road motorcycles. So I guess there's a couple of things we have to decide on here. So let's deal with the extreme terrain vehicles and off-road motorcycles first. So I guess what we're looking for here is should they or should they not be allowed on our streets? So I'll start with, should they not be allowed on our streets? Off-road motorcycles, extreme terrain vehicles. How do I do this? I'm not voting on a motion here. Am I just looking for thumbs up? Hands raised?
Hands raised, yeah.
Okay, so off-road motorcycles, extreme terrain vehicles, no. Put your hand. Oh, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just looking for some clarification. So when we're talking about extreme off-road vehicles, we're talking about a six-wheeled Argo. Correct me if I'm wrong, they travel predominantly slower than any ATV on the market. They are slower than a side-by-side. I mean, side-by-side with a lift kit and larger tires on is more extreme than a six-wheeled Argo. So I just find it interesting that they're labeled as extreme, but certain other ones are. So I'm just wondering for that clarification on why.
Have to ask the provincial government. It's their legislation. I don't know.
Yeah, I can speak on it. So
Scott, hang on, Steve, hang on. Do we have to do anything to allow a member of the public to speak?
Okay.
Okay.
Allow.
I want to make sure I'm not breaking any rules.
No. So an extreme vehicle is, like you said, the Argos, they're 6 or 8 wheeled. And normally these guys put tracks on these things. The reason why they're extreme is because you can float these things across swamps, ponds, etc. You can fish out of them if you want to. Whereas a regular ATV side by side, they're an all-terrain or a utility vehicle. Okay, and I just want to clarify one thing too with the RC ATV Club. These two vehicles that we do not authorize them to have trail passes. So for us, they're a no-go on our trail system anyways.
Okay, thank you. And I think if I could add something else, the extreme vehicles are often a little bit wider because they have 6 wheels. If they're turning on asphalt, they're more liable to cause damage on the asphalt. Is that right, Chris?
I would say that they're harder to steer for sure on pavement. Yeah, where they're meant to be off-road all the time.
Okay. So I'll ask that question once more. Off-road motorcycles, extreme terrain vehicles, not on our municipal roads, raise your hand. Okay. So there's the first direction to staff. For phase 3, does council want to communicate with residents via a public online survey prior to making any amendments to the ORV bylaw for phase 3? So do we want an online survey undertaken? Hands up. Oh, we have a question. Deputy Mayor Sapp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How are we going to communicate that there's an online survey for people to take an online survey for this? That's just really my question. I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to know that it's happening.
My first step would be I would advertise on our website, advertise on our Facebook page, do a possible media on the radio to get that out as well. And I would ask if he could distribute it via our agenda distribution list that we have as well.
Thank you.
Okay, with a show of hands, do we want to communicate with residents via public survey before the implementation of phase 3? Show of hands. 1, 2, 3. I guess I'll break the tie. Direction to staff is for a public survey. Okay. And do we want to expand the existing designated ORV routes? And there was a second section to this. If so, how should the designated ORV route be altered or expanded? That's kind of a complicated question, let's say. Yeah, Councillor Coutu.
I wonder if we could move that question till after we get the survey results back.
I guess the purpose of the survey is to get feedback from the community. So before we decide that, is everybody comfortable? We'll get the survey done, which takes 2 or 3 weeks. Then we'll come back with another report. Even though it's looking like we're ready to go ahead with phase 3, it's important that we accept the feedback. Councillor Driscoll.
In that though, would there be a question based upon, are you okay with using this route? Because if we don't give them the option, then they won't know that it is an option on the table. Is what you know what I'm getting at? Well, so the proposed route is Murphy Road, right? So we want to hold off on the proposed route of using Murphy Road. Is that what I'm getting at? Or
No, phase 3 is the
everywhere.
all encompassing everyone. Yeah.
But that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead now.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify in my report, I indicated the section of Murphy from Doran to the highway, not from Doran to Petawawa Boulevard.
So in the initial report, when Don mentioned Murphy Road, it was from Doran out to Highway 17 where there are no curbs. It's a paved shoulder road. I guess it's probably best if we wait for the public survey information to come back, but I guess what we want to make sure of right here is what is going to be asked of the public when this survey goes out. Are we going to put all the streets that are presently being proposed for phase 3? We're going to say these streets are now being proposed for phase 3 of the ORV policy for the town of Petawawa, so that people know, okay, this is a street, it runs in front of my house.
Just going to say that it will also give us time to give you a list of our curbed streets as well, which could be identified in the survey. What I can do is before I issue it is send it to the clerk for distribution to council just to get any concerns before it goes public.
Okay. I think it would be important, since we are considering perhaps not allowing them the curb, that's a good question to ask of the public. Deputy Mayor Sadler?
I would agree with that. Thank you for that. I was going to ask, what are we doing about raised curb streets? If that's not clearly identified, then how will people know if we're talking about entire Petawawa? So that would be very helpful if you could include that, please.
Councillor Driscoll.
Hey, Mr. Mayor. On the curb street, I mean, something to think about. I know we've talked about an ATV holding up traffic. Well, what does a bicycle do if you're driving on a curb street? You are on the roadway. Vehicles have to either go around you. If there's traffic coming the other way, they yield until they can have a time to go around, which is the same thing they would do with an ATV. So, and then now you have someone, say, coming out of Bedard. Instead of being able to go down Murphy Road, they either have to cross Murphy Road, drive through a longer residential subdivision, instead of driving 200 meters down to the Algonquin Trail, or they have to go out towards industrial, which again, they're driving farther through another residential subdivision, passing more houses to access the same trail that's even closer to their house. So common sense dictates people are just going to drive down Murphy Road the 200 meters instead of going through multiple residential subdivisions. So I don't understand the premise behind the curb street and saying that it would impede the flow of traffic. Civic Center Road, Murphy Road, and the busiest peak times of the day are school times. How fast does traffic travel in peak time? There's a lot of traffic on the road. It goes pretty slow to begin with. So I just think it's going to make a confusing situation where it's like you can drive on 95% of the streets except these main trunk streets. You have to go through multiple residential neighborhoods to access the same trail.
Just in terms of your comment with bicycles, on our curb roads like Murphy, Civic Center, Volunteer Way, there's a MUP, there's a bicycle path. So the bicycles aren't supposed to be on the road. They should be on the MUP where the picture of the bicycle is. And just in terms of the confusion in 95% of the roads, and I hate to compare us to other municipalities, but I'll use Pembroke. There's one road. That's all you can use. We're allowing people to use 95% of our roads. So I find it, I don't know if ironic is the word, but you shouldn't be complaining about having 95% of the streets when most towns have 1 or 2%. And I get your argument that, oh boy, this looks short, but sometimes you have to make detours in order to preserve public safety and liability for the town. Councillor Kerman.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Definitely on the same page as Councillor Driscoll here. Like bicycles and in particular e-bikes are far more dangerous than an ATV is going to be, especially when you're driving down the street at 20 or 30 kilometers an hour and it's really busy and you look next to you and there's some dude on an e-bike right next to your car between you and the curb, which would not happen with an ATV. That's a far more dangerous situation.
Okay, I appreciate everybody's comments, but I think all we're getting to here is what to put in the survey. So, and we want to hear what the public says about whether they want ATVs and other vehicles on our streets. So all we're saying is we're going to ask the public, get their feedback, and we'll see what the public says. We could argue this all evening, but we want to know what the public has to say. Okay, so have I given all the direction we need to give? Yeah? Okay, that was a fulsome discussion. So, yeah, I don't think there's anything else with that. Okay, thank you very much, Don and Chris, for all of your work on that. Thank you. And thanks for the members of the public for attending. Okay, next we have Economic Development Monthly Activity Report for January 2025 and February 2025. Thanks for patiently waiting, Christine. Your time has come.
Thank you, members of council and mayor. So in relation to the Economic Development Monthly Report for the month of January, I just want to highlight some consultation on Community Improvement Plan and the closing of the file for CIP as it relates to the Gearhead project. I also want to highlight the extensive amount of staff resources to support the Odyssey Shuttles operation in the town of Petawawa, and that is occurring currently and offering alternative opportunities for transportation for our residents and tourists to the area. There was a number of consultations throughout the month of January to support various businesses that are intending to open very shortly, that are currently doing site works or were requiring AGCO applications. So as always, our department supports those initiatives. Under communications and marketing, we did start a new series within the community, a direct outreach to Petawawa business owners, an opportunity on a very casual basis to connect with them. We had our first business connect this past Friday in honor of International Women's Day, and it is an ongoing engagement that staff will be working towards. We also officially launched the BR&E survey process. We completed the engagement in December and had offered employment under a contract term to Phoenix Van Hoof, and he was successful in starting with us on January the 10th. And so our BR&E process, our series of engagements, direct survey engagements with our business partners is ongoing currently. We, of course, started a work on the container market for 2025 operations. And we have received official notification January the 23rd that we will be hosting the Taste of the Valley Petawawa edition again September the 19th, 2026. All of the other activities are in the report, and I will take any questions if there are any.
Well, that is exciting news. I was hoping we could get it every year, but I guess we can't be too greedy. It's great to see all the activity, Christine, in terms of retail and commercial requests and people looking to come to Petawawa to do business. So keep up the good work. Keep attracting them to our town. Questions of the report? Councillor Coutu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Less a question, more a comment. Councillor Donovan and I were lucky enough to be at your Business Connect event at Ottawa Valley Coffee, and I have to say it was amazing to watch people be able to network in real time. You could see the connections being formed, all the partnerships and projects being put together. So I'm really excited that you're putting this out for all our business community, and thank you for everything.
Any other questions on the report? And I was at, and I know you were at Valor School as well to hear some entrepreneurial presentations. And I just want to give you another shout out about the container market. Even the 12-year-old kids wanted to sell their goods at the Petawawa Container Market. Okay, if there are no other questions, I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Councillor Ruth, seconded by Councillor Donovan, that the Economic Development Monthly reports be accepted as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Mayor Service, excuse me, that was only January's report. We're going to go to February's and one motion for both, please.
Sorry for the confusion.
I got ahead of myself. I thought that was the whole thing. Carry on.
In relation to the work done by the department in February, just wanting to note some changes in the commercial business registrations and also in home business inquiries, of course, which we identified are on the increase. Again, continuing with CIP, some more industrial park development inquiries are occurring. Today was explosive, if I can say so. And then in general business, again, providing support as necessary. I do want to highlight a win out of our BR&E process. After each engagement with the business community, I receive a little synopsis of some immediate opportunities where I can reach out to that business and provide support. And so specifically, one of our entrepreneurs, multiple business owners are identifying energy and hydro costs as a challenge for them. And so one particular enterprise was receptive to an IESO grant that is currently available for businesses. And so I was able to connect them with the proponent. And we are now working with that IESO agent to come and have further consultations with businesses about this energy rebate program. So great collaborations are being identified, and that particular business was successful in getting the energy grant and upgrading their lighting to LED lighting and taking advantage of this opportunity. So I do also want to highlight the importance of our e-news communications. We have amped it up. We are bi-monthly sending out business e-news communications. They are listed under Economic Development tab in the website for those that are currently signed up to receive them so they can see the communications. We strongly encourage you to sign up. And we did post a resource page about Think Local resources associated with the tariff talks and challenges that highlight opportunities and how your Canadian business can get listed on those opportunities and how we can think about supporting local business opportunities. again, a vast amount of meetings and work, and we did present 2 reports during the month of February at the February meeting, the Retail Business Holidays Act and the first of the branding concept discussions.
Okay, questions on February's report? Deputy Mayor Sabra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Christine. Christine, just with respect to the container market, when I was away in Costa Rica for my trip recently, there was a huge container market that we visited, and they had permanent stalls, but then they also had some temporary stalls, which I thought were very, very cool. They were very open and made of a very strong wood and had a roof over it that wasn't a permanent, but I was just thinking in my head that, for those big events that we have, maybe permanent isn't always what we only need, but maybe we can expand. I just thought it was really interesting. It was very, very popular too. So I know that we are absolutely on the right track with these things. Thank you.
Further questions of the report? Okay, I know I did send you a question previously about there's 2 new businesses coming, Flightline and the Flying Dutchman, and I thought, oh, there's more activity at the airport. But it's not. Flightline is a virtual darts company, and the Flying Dutchman is a barber. I thought, oh yeah? Right on. Okay, if there are no questions now, I need a motion to accept the 2 reports. Do I use the ones I already had or go again? I'm starting fresh. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, seconded by Councillor Driscoll, that the Economic Development Monthly Reports be accepted as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, next up we have ED-03-2025 Petawawa Business Advisory Network Terms of Reference. Christine.
Yeah, so an opportunity as part of our modernization and our review of our documents and processes to look at the terms of reference for this particular committee of council that was endorsed in July of 2019. An opportunity to just look at the mandate, the composition, the training required to be a member of the department. We did have the opportunity to have this discussion of the proposed changes with the PBAN representatives, and they had input into some of these changes. They are associated with Appendix B, or the attachment to this particular document. I don't think the changes are of any fundamental nature that alters the committee in any way. I think it just is more representative of what the committee feels that it is providing as a service under their portfolio. And then as staff, we just wanted to make sure that we included the opportunity at council's request for a council alternative to be documented within the membership composition. We also wanted to redefine the Economic Development Department reference, which was always solo and is now expanded to ensure that we were there. We also wanted to define the election of the chair position, just to provide some clarity. And then again, with the training, noting the establishment of the accessibility customer service policy, which is a requirement of not only this committee of council, but all committees of council, and then also the code of conduct. So that at the time of applications, when they're reviewing terms of reference, it's very clear as to the 2 documents that form part of the application process and the path forward. And that's all I have to say.
Questions about the report? I think it's great that we added in the training aspect in terms of any members of PBAN having to review the 2 bylaw and the policies there, especially the the code of conduct policy. It's important that all of our board members are trained in that area. So it's great to see as part of it. Okay, no questions? Then I need a motion. Moved by Councillor Roots, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that council supports the proposed modifications to the Petawawa Business Advisory Network Terms of Reference. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, next we have ED-04-2025 Community Improvement Plan for Airborne Petawawa. Christine.
Yes, so this is one of those consultations that we've been undergoing in the new year. It relates to a signage opportunity for Airborne Petawawa at 148 Len Hopkins Drive. There is no existing frame or structure for a sign for this commercial business that has a lease opportunity to operate on airport lands. The request is for $1,000 in proposed signage. It is supported by the airport. We have received the letter from the Airport Commission that they approve the sign and the sign participation. It is eligible under our CIPA because it's within the designated area. And so while we don't necessarily have a firm budget at this point for CIP, we do have funds within our reserve that can support the CIP, and we know that council is in favor of supporting CIP developments. And for these proponents, they are looking to get ready for their new season and get this project underway. So we do bring it before council. So the recommendation is that we do support Airborne Petawawa in their request for CIP financing to the amount of $1,000 under the signage improvement grant.
Thank you. Questions on the report? Great to see CIP starting up again already. If you're comfortable, I need a motion. Moved by Deputy Mayor Savern, seconded by Councillor Coutu, that council, under the Community Improvement Plan adopted by Bylaw 1441/21, enter into the necessary funding agreement with Airborne Petawawa, supported by the Pembroke and Area Airport, for the following CIP financial incentive program, up to 1,000 under the signage grant. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have ED-05-2025 Town of Petawawa logos and applications. Christine?
All right, so back to the big elephant that we are trying to take a bite of at a time when we talk about municipal logos. Long has been a challenge, the logo situation for the town of Petawawa and the use and administration of what is commonly referred to as a logo versus a crest. As part of staff review and discussions, as part of processes to modernize and improve operations, which began in June of 2024, we looked at our logo complement, of which there's a number of logos and very little direction, policy, or oversight in how they are applied or used. In fact, the corporate crest has been used as a logo, so the crest being the commonly referred to symbol with 1865 that has the deer and the tree in it, being used as a logo and not as a crest as it was trademarked in 2020 to be. There is a marketing logo. It's currently a burgundy frame of Petawawa with a tree on the top of it. And again, there's been a lot of cross color contamination. There's been a lot of cross promotion of the two logos interspersed. So as part of this work to determine what to do with logos and how to get a path forward, under the direction of the CAO and with two council representatives, there was a branding committee that involved myself, Rudy from the department, the director of community services, and the manager of culture, parks and tourism, recreation, culture, tourism, sorry, and of course the manager of public works. So as part of the process, looking at the myriad of logos, what we could define as a path forward, how to piece this elephant one bite at a time. So the process started with a public survey to say, here is our marketing logo, here's the town crest, the look of the town crest. What do you like about them? What don't you like about them? What kind of thought process is there? It was very clear out of the survey results, which were presented to council, that people really identify with the tree and the deer. So that was two common features that should be prevalent in the path and the work forward. It's also important to note that the term dynamic by nature was also trademarked as our corporate slogan and is used primarily in conjunction with a marketing logo. And so the survey also said that very much the community identified with that particular slogan and they wanted us to continue with it. When we asked them about the color palette, they did feel that the more earthy tone color palette was the direction to go. And so with all of that knowledge, the branding committee again reviewed the opportunities. We discussed what staff could do internally to prepare for an RFP, to look at the possibility of having a graphic designer look at our logos and provide us their counsel. That RFP process went out under the traditional format for RFQ, where we asked, and we did report on that in staff reports, that we had 26 proponents that were interested in receiving the RFQ package, that we received 9 submissions. We scored those submissions, and then we did award the RFQ to Syntax Synergy, who offered to do the work at no cost to the municipality to review the logos and provide their counsel. The reasoning for offering the work was because they had a connection with the municipality. One of the principal's husband had served in the community, and one of the other principals had also lived in the community, so they felt this was a way to give back. There was an option, though, within the RFQ that the implementation costs, also offered at a reduced rate, would be associated with their work. So implementation costs, i.e. the design of the banner structures, or separate work that supports the logo moving forward, the logo brand moving forward. A process of reviewing those logo options and engagement was defined as part of the work plan. We've highlighted it here in the document. Basically, they were providing 3 rounds of logo concept with opportunity for feedback at each of the rounds of consultation. And then the idea was to determine a final logo from which branding guidelines could be created. One of the things that staff had wanted to do as part of this branding process, again, looking at the myriad of logos that are out there and being used by the municipality and or affiliates of the municipality, was to look at this variant composition. Staff certainly had ideas about how that could be achieved, and we certainly worked with Syntax on that process. However, they can't move forward until we have a principal logo design that we are going to be utilizing, because they can't work with things moving forward. All to say, we are at the point where they have provided us with now the 4th variation of the logos. They are presented to you on screen. There is the marketing logo, which is in burgundy, which is currently used in the community, and there's the proposal of 2 options, 3.1 and 3.2, that are provided before you. The question before council is to select the one that resonates with council and that staff can direct Syntax to create the brand guidelines for. The second piece of this is also to provide the applications for the marketing logo and where it's used. So in relation to the crest versus the marketing logo, after reviewing multiple other municipalities and uses, we did in the last report to council provide a variation of use opportunities. We did hear from the representatives around the table that they wanted the crest to be used more in certain applications. So in the supplement document that we also provided to council as part of this report, we did make those revisions that we heard at the last presentation to council for the crest. I will note that, again, the crest is supposed to be used for corporate proclamations and historic purposes to reserve the integrity of the application and the visualization of that document. The other logos are for the public viewing and for helping to create the brand, the branding of the community, and the general use of awareness. So we revised the uses based on the comments from the last discussion, and those were provided as part of an addendum to this document. We also did provide you some images in the addendum where the crest is being used throughout the town, and we didn't provide all the options, but in the top middle section is the crest as it's truly trademarked. So that is how it is supposed to be recreated based on the trademark that's registered. The other uses are outside of the trademark in terms of color use and saturations and different things. We don't have guidelines that are administrating this. So even if we move forward with a marketing logo through Syntax, staff want to also provide those same guidelines for the use of the crest to ensure that the integrity is maintained. The second image that we're providing for you is the commonly used marketing logo. You can see the variations of it in use. You can also see that it has modifications to it, which need to be made. It's not user-friendly in its current state, which was one of the impetuses for us to go down this road. And in the final visuals that we did provide as part of this document, we also show that the application of the logos are intermittent on properties all over town. Again, referencing the fact that because there was no guidelines and there was no oversight and administration on the use, the logos were used intermittently. Even now, on our envelopes for municipal documentation, the corporate crest is in a pure burgundy version, which is not how the crest was trademarked to be used. So in presenting all of this, the ask before council this evening is twofold. It's one, to select one of the two proposed marketing logos provided by Syntax Synergy so that we can proceed with that work and starting the brand guidelines for the marketing elements. And two, that council provide direction on the application of the municipal crest versus the marketing logo, because that will affect some of the implementation work that's also necessary. And I will take questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Christine, for the updated presentation. So we have in front of us, we have a screen, and 2 weeks ago we had a pretty fulsome debate here about what we were going to do in terms of choosing the new marketing logo. And I think at the end of the meeting, there was some consensus that it was the one that you see in the middle there, which is 3.2. Is that correct? 3.1, the one with the brown deer and the green. The only member that wasn't present was Deputy Mayor Sanborn. So unless other people have comments about which one we're choosing.
Can I just also note that those versions in their full scale were also provided in the package for viewing in terms of how they would be formatted for different uses.
Okay, questions or comments from members of council in terms of choosing the logo? Deputy Mayor Sanborn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Christine. Christine, I meant to ask this question earlier, but you said that the logos and the crest are not user friendly, and I'm just wondering what that means. If you could articulate that for me, that would be helpful. Like, what is it that isn't just in terms of what is it that it isn't user friendly? What have been the challenges, that kind of thing, if you don't mind.
So our current marketing logo is provided simply in that rectangle version. The lettering is not accessible for accessibility readers. It's only two-tone, which gives us very limited access for how we can use it and break it out. It's hard to reproduce. There's a lot of extra line work in it. The dynamic by nature is also expanded. Again, not an accessibility feature for readability. It's also not convertible to other formatted uses like social media buttons and different things. We can only take a portion of that particular logo and use it. In terms of the crest is often used because we can't use the marketing logo in some applications, which I think has augmented the challenge and the widely understood use that the crest is a logo. It doesn't have the dynamic by nature tagline. It isn't offered in various versions for use on publications. And it's a corporate crest, so it should be preserved for, again, historical, relevant documentation and not our marketing.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful because I've actually seen various, I brought a couple of the things that I have, and one of them is Petawawa Civic Center fundraising, which is not a Town of Petawawa, and it's got the logo on it, right? And so the logo is the entire thing and not just the picture. It's the entire piece. Got it. Now that's clearer to me. Thank you for that. And I guess my next question is for accessibility, is it the Verdana font or what font is it that we're using? If you could be helpful with that.
So it's right now we're looking to use a sans serif font in the new logo. So 3.1, the logo application is identified in the package that was provided to council. The font, yes. And again, as the brand guidelines are created, the uses and the fonts and all of those details will be provided further so that we know when we're using them how they are to be applied.
So that's coming. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Okay, is there any further discussion on which of the two logos we're choosing? Any opposed views into what we decided 2 weeks ago in terms of a 3.2? Why do I keep calling 3.2? 3.1.
Mayor Service, if I may jump in, last week 3.1 in the package was, according to the package today, 3.2.1. So I want to make sure we have the clarification.
And just so I don't seem like a doofus, on the paper in front of me, it says, does council approve either 3.2 or 3.3? So that's just on my copy. Yeah. So that's where my confusion is stemming from. Yeah, Councilor Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm glad to see the suggested logo uses. I know that there's a lot of residents they take a lot of pride in the town, as we know, and they just want to make sure that that crest is still protected, and I see that it is. The crest is protected. It's part of the mayor's chains office, the official documents, legal documents, town flags, the seal, the whole 9 yards. So I think everyone's going to be happy with that. When I took this back to this was on the Petawawa P-band, and I did send an email out to the council members. The P-band members like the 3.1. The suggestion was the rock, which was identified as a bear's paw, could be identified maybe more as stand out in a darker color, but you got to watch all the confusion there. But the bear being so significant to the garrison Petawawa, which Petawawa was about as a military base, that was a concern that came forward, but also a color of burgundy. Then they thought that could be all we wouldn't have maybe such an expense or so much, if you keep that burgundy trim in there or something. That was just a thought that I sent out also, okay? But I'm just glad to see my biggest concern here, because I'm good with the marketing idea of the new logo, but I'm glad that the corporate crest is protected. That's what a lot of the big concern was for our residents. Thank you.
Christine?
Thank you, Murray. To respond to the bear paw, we did consult with the elder who's a part of our DEI committee, EDI, sorry, interchangeably used. That was a directive out of the branding committee to ensure that we had that consultation. The path forward was the bear paw opportunity, as you know, the entire use of the tree and the air and the water is also an homage to our ancestry, Aboriginal ancestry, but they felt the bear paw was reflective. The branding team at Syntax also highlighted it, wanting to be very conscious and concerned that they weren't using something that wasn't somehow verified, and we were very clear in letting them know that we had the consultation. To alter that from what's existing, I believe Councillor Coutu could speak to it. I think it would require a lot further consultation that would delay the process and require some financial support. But our representative on EDI felt that this was very representative and also really liked the logo presentation according to the feedback. And I will also, sorry, Murray, Councillor Roots, apologies. I will also reference that I was not at the PBAN meeting to which you speak. I was at the Business Development Summit. I was doing a presentation and leading some outreach opportunities. As such, I was not able to participate in that conversation and also frame it and reference it. I have participated in a number of logo redevelopments in other communities, and while I will acknowledge that there's burgundy structures or burgundy elements here in the town of Petawawa, those elements don't necessarily define the color scheme of our marketing logo. If we put the burgundy in this, then the census is that we would never change potentially from the burgundy. I think we have to decide what the marketing logo is and then have a plan of path forward. That's not to say that we will eliminate burgundy color immediately or that it doesn't have a place in terms of benches or some of the existing infrastructure. There's certain opportunities to designate area by color. There's the opportunity for staff to look at all of those things. It's not a one and done immediate change. We have to bite this elephant one piece at a time, and this is the first step.
Follow up? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Christine, thanks for that explanation, and I totally understand. I just wanted to bring that back because, like I said, I just wanted to get that message out there. Totally understand what you're saying, and like I said, I'm just glad the way this was presented here this evening. Thank you.
We have to be careful about the burgundy color. I may have to bring the jackets back if we keep the burgundy. Okay, just I see a couple hands raised. I just want to make sure that we deal with the choice of the logo, and then we can move on to the applications and all that different sort of thing. So is there any other comments in terms of choosing 3.1 as the logo? Okay, Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the marketing side of it, I do like the second logo, the one 3.3 on this sheet, but the one on the right. It doesn't look as cluttered to me, and I like the font a lot better. I think the green and the gold go well together. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since I wasn't here when this discussion, I actually like the one in the middle and I like the detail. Thank you.
And I will just add, for whatever it's worth, I did show these to a graphic designer, and I learned about something called the rule of thirds that I've never heard of before. But if you separate the logos into like a peace sign, like 3 pie shape. The one in the middle, if you separate it into the 3 pie shape, you have the deer by itself, the tree by itself, the rocks in the water, and the Petawawa by itself. And apparently this rule of thirds is very important when people are looking at a logo. And if you divide the one on the right into the rule of the thirds, it gets carved up. And apparently, if people are glancing at it, it may look pleasing to the eye, but it's not good as a marketing tool. And there you go. That's the rule of thirds. Okay. I guess what I'll do is logo 3.1, the one in the middle, just by show of hands, who chooses that as our new marketing logo? So that's 4, and the one on the right, 3.2. Okay, so it looks like 3.1 is the new marketing logo for the town hall. Do we have to pass a resolution, or we just, yeah, should I do just a motion for that? And then we'll do the other ones after. Okay, so I need a motion then to accept. The council approves logo 3.1 as the new marketing logo for the town hall. Moved by Councilor Bruce, second by Councilor Perdue. The council approves logo 3.1 as the new marketing logo for the town hall. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Okay. As we did 2 weeks ago, we had a discussion about the uses, and Councilor Bruce has already mentioned about the original town of Petawawa press and where it's being used. And you'll see in front of you 2 lists. When we ended our meeting 2 weeks ago, we had kind of walked away with a general consensus that everybody was comfortable with using the new marketing logo for marketing purposes. So if you look at the box on the right, that would be the first 6 bullets. And when we left 2 weeks ago, I think the general consensus was we wanted to spend a little more time going over all of the different uses in terms of press versus marketing logo. So I'm not sure how deep in the weeds we want to get into this tonight, but is everybody, and I'll take out the 7th bullet there that says municipal access such as vehicles, equipment, uniforms, promotional merchandise. Because the impetus here this evening is to get the website going, get the marketing campaign going, and getting this information back to our graphic design company, because the website designers are currently sitting waiting for the logo and color palettes before they can design their website. So if you look at the first 6 bullets in terms of marketing uses, I think what we're looking at right now is everybody comfortable with the new marketing logo being used for those marketing Hey, Mr. Mayor, I'm sure everyone around the table know my opinion on this whole process, but I am willing to accept the color palette change and digital marketing materials and improvement materials. I would like some more information on the wayfinding signage because I don't think we've had a proper financial allocation for that. We've seen some of the signs, multiple signs we have around.
Very recent, have the previous logos. So I would like to know how much it is going to cost, because financial, I mean, as I've showed everybody here, when this first came about, I started to do some community outreach, and I have a signed survey from over 200 people of our municipality who agree with me on this whole process. After I explained to them well about, you know, there is certain things that we can change. I'm fine with the color. I'm fine with some updated marketing. They did agree with me because the cost would be very minimal. That was the biggest issue people were distraught about, was the potential cost when they could like to see that money elsewhere. So for most of the stuff that are on there, they are daily business items or digital items, which are not going to have much of a cost. But when we get into signage, I would like to know more on what it will cost and what they will look like, because I know there was discussion of we could have a vinyl wrap or a powder coating, but number one, how much does that cost? But then also they have a great look right now. So if you put a vinyl wrap on it, will it look cheap compared to the nice look they have now? So I would like to see that. But other than that, like I said, digital and tourism information I am fine with. Thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Sandra.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I don't have an issue with the top six at all. And again, I just would like to know what the wayfinding strategy looks like in terms of implementation. Wasn't all that many years ago, and again, the years have gone by fast for me, but it doesn't seem like it was all that long ago that we did those burgundy signs. And I think for the most part, when I drive by and look at them, they're in really good shape. So what does that transition look like, and how would that be implemented? That's just the kind of stuff that I'm interested in too. Thanks.
You want to respond to that? Okay, Christine.
So wayfinding signage is more than just the municipal signage program. So the municipal signage program relates to the signage of municipal properties. Wayfinding signage is also directional signage, wayfinding. It's our kiosks that exist that have panels in them, which was referenced in the document, that has a myriad of versions of logos in those. So until we know what the marketing logo is and how we could potentially use it, we can't task Syntax with the implementation concepts so that we can then do a costing analysis. So again, big elephant, and we're trying to do this as a process. We are continually updating signage. We've been on hold on some of those signage pieces as we were waiting for these elements to be done. So there is existing dollars within operational budgets for some of this. There is earmarked opportunity for wayfinding, and we are also trying to position ourselves to be eligible for grant opportunities that relate specifically to these things as they relate for economic development and tourism to support a community. So this is a multi-tiered opportunity that we have to be prepared for when those opportunities come forward. And so we're just trying to go through the steps, and we're trying to do the process.
That's perfect. I was just going to say, I just want to say that's perfect. That we're not committing to the implementation. We're just looking at the way finding ahead. Thank you, Christine.
This late in the meeting to throw out a good barb like that, that's good. Okay, so from what I understand, there's more fulsome reports coming in the future. Councillor Kingdon.
Thank you, Mayor Service. I'd have to agree with the Deputy Mayor. The optics wouldn't be good. It would seem quite wasteful to replace signs that are in great shape now with updated signs. And another thing that occurs to me that we'd have to be very careful about is our fleet vehicle. Like, that's a high visibility, something very high visibility that would be out there. People may see updates in this regard and think that doesn't need to happen. That's very wasteful. So, just the thoughts.
If I can just speak to that. Certainly burgundy vehicles were considered the norm in the 80s and 90s for the municipality, as were colored vehicles in other municipalities. It was a way of identifying the area from which the vehicle was operating. We have seen over the years that the cost of those specialized colors and the add-ons to them, and there is a move towards the white vehicles as part of a county of Renfrew initiative, so that potentially vehicles could be shared throughout the county. I think that the decision has already been made in terms of a cost savings to move in that way forward. Logo applications on vehicles can be done in a myriad of ways. The examples from Syntax are there. That doesn't mean that that's the application that we have to use moving forward. So there are opportunities. I will also say that our heavy equipment is yellow, and we have some burgundy logos, and we're already committed to buying some white logos as part of our new fleet. So it's just to be clear about the path forward so we can create the right path forward so that when we start spending the money, we are spending it appropriately and not going back to a situation where it's the wild, wild west or willy-nilly.
Very technical term. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so I guess we need a motion for this. So it'll be a little bit of a, right now it says the council provides directions on the applications associated with the municipal crest versus the marketing logo. Am I good with that, as long as everybody understands that we have the 6 bullets, we move the vehicle equipment uniforms over there for further discussion? So everybody's good with the motion as I said it? Okay, so if you're comfortable, I need a motion. Moved by Councillor Coutu. Seconded by Councillor Donovan. The council provides directions on the applications associated with the municipal crest versus the marketing logo. And with the asterisks that, as we see it in front of us, it's the 6 marketing tourism type applications, with the 7th bullet moved to the other side for further discussion. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Those opposed? It's carried. Whew. Okay. We still have more to do. Thank you, Christine. You certainly can, Councillor.
Thank you. Did we not just make a subtle change to the crest? Change the rope to something else?
There have been no changes to the crest. The historical crest remains as is. Yeah. Thanks for your question. Okay, next we have FIN-06-2025, the February 2025 expenditure list. Christine.
Thankfully, I'm last on the agenda. There's nobody after me. So this is the second report. Again, I'll be bringing a monthly report on the expenditures or checks issued for the previous month, every month thereafter, for a council review and consideration. So the format is the same as last month. There was compared to last month, there was a bit of a drop. Right now, there's not a lot of activity as we wait for the budget, as well as from a weather perspective. I guess the higher amount of expenditures in January was related to the mad rush of getting vendors paid as part of our year-end close process. So we are in a bit of a lull right now in terms of volume, but we're still having to pay people. And as you can see, in the vendor analysis, there are some, I guess, not repeat offenders because they're not offending, but frequent flyers in terms of vendors, especially with respect to our larger contracts with OPP and Aqua, and as well as our payroll remittances that we have to remit every week now. So I'm not going to read every single check on the list. But I'm happy to answer any specific questions you may have on this report.
Questions on the monthly report? Okay, looks like we're ready to pay the bills. So I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Councillor Roots, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that check numbers 4749 to 4940 totaling $2,706,288.34 be approved by council. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have FIN-07-2025 in regards to the 2024 reserves and reserve fund transfers. Christine.
Yes, so the report before you is actually kind of piggybacking off of the budget reports for 2025 that's been presented to council. So as part of that budget package, there's been numbers in terms of transferring in and transferring out. As we have, we are closing our year end with the auditors actually on site this week to close things out. As Mayor Service can attest to their monitoring them here in council, they are working in council chambers throughout this week. So again, this is just to kind of close out the books in terms of table 1 being what was originally I guess proposed or approved as part of the 2024 budget with some updates to actuals or proposed changes. And then table 2 is what council had approved to be taken out of reserves. And the report is just saying, okay, if you've approved to fund up to X amount of dollars, but we only spent half of those, then we only need to take out half. So really only taking out what we need, not the full amount. And again, leaving those unused funds in reserve for future costs, such as the 2025 budget. And then the last table 3, are for those projects that we had specific requests from committees. That's a new request, so we have incorporated that into the report as well as the 2025 budget, as well as unused funds. For example, the town hall renovation, we did have funds in the 2024 budget. Part of those costs were to be funded from taxation. Obviously, the renovations have not yet started, but we do want to carry those funds over into 2025 when that project will actually occur. So table 3 is really the items that we've council had approved to be funded out of taxation, but we haven't spent those tax dollars yet. So again, we're just putting those into reserves. If we don't, then we'd have to tax for them again in the 2025 budget. So that's the high level of each of the tables, and it follows the similar report format that I brought back in the fall for the 2023 reserves. So continuing the form and format, and it's just the individual line items that are changing. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions on the report.
Questions on the reserve report? No questions on the reserve fund report? It was all the tables were very nicely laid out and everything was pretty clear. So I think everybody understands what's going on. So if everybody's comfortable, I need a motion. Moved by Councillor Driscoll, seconded by Councillor Roots. The council approves the proposed transfers to and from the town's reserves and reserve funds as presented in Table 1, budgeted transfers to reserve funds, and those are proposed amounts. Table 2, budgeted transfers out of reserve funds. Those are actual amounts. And Table 3, transfers to reserve funds for carryover into 2025. And that $1,000 be transferred from the Industrial Parks Reserve Fund to the Fire Reserve Fund to reallocate the CEMC funds. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. And finally, FIN-08-2025, the 2025 budgets, capital, operating, water, and wastewater. Christine, you're on.
All right, so the binders that you have before you are the physical copies of the presentation incorporated into the report. The numbers have not changed from the public meeting. Council did not give staff direction at that meeting. It was just for public input and consideration. The only thing that has changed from that public meeting presentation is we did add some additional words. So I know I'm a numbers person, but I did change the words, not the numbers. And that is just to add some additional information with respect to the funded amounts or the funding allocation for each of the committees. So the EDI committee and the new seniors committee, as well as the accessibility committee. So just specifically calling those out. And then in future iterations of this budget report, we'll make sure that they're a separate line item within the tables themselves. And just so from a transparency perspective, as well as for council members who sit on those committees, they're clearly presented in with the numbers. But really, that's the only revision that's changed. So as presented at the public meeting, the budget is proposing a 7% tax rate increase. So I did present that, or excuse me, communicate at the public meeting that using an example of a assessed value of $400,000 of an assessed value for a house in residential house in Petawawa, a 7% increase would equate to $137 in increased property taxes. I do also want to note that the water and sewer rates proposed as well, if a house is on both water and sewer, some houses are, some houses aren't, but assuming they are, water and sewer combined would be an increase of $40.36. So those are the kind of, I guess, and that $40 doesn't tie into assessed value. So it's either you have water or you don't. So it's a flat rate regardless of your assessed value. So that $40.36 is a constant. So I won't run through the entire budget package. I did at the public meeting and as well as in previous budget workshops. But I am happy to answer any specific questions. But the purpose of this report is to, again, seek either approval or further direction from council if there's any requested changes or modifications to the budget as presented.
Okay, thanks, Christine. And again, another big thank you. Another big thank you to you and all of your department for all the work you've done in the budgetary process and bringing all of these budgets forward. A big thanks again to our CAO, Scott, and all of our senior staff who have spent a lot of time trying to, I don't want to say balance the budget, but bring us a budget forth that council can agree on. I don't want to go into this in too much length because I know I already did it before the public meeting. But I just want to let everybody know that we did begin this process substantially over budget. And then staff's task was to bring it down to something that was more acceptable. And I'll reiterate the fact that an increase in taxes is never popular, and it's not something that we always intend to do. But it's a decision that we don't take lightly. I do encourage everyone to not focus on the percentages and the numbers, but think about all the reasons why we're here, which is to lead responsibly and make decisions that will support a thriving community far into the future, not just today. Thanks to the present council and all past councils for all of their efforts in terms of budgeting for many years. What we have done is place Petawawa in an enviable position with one of the lowest tax rates in all of Renfrew County. However, as we grow and expand, we have to assume responsibility for more roads, sidewalks, parks, and other infrastructure. We are required to complement our staff to meet increased workloads and demands for services. We always have to keep in mind the plan for future expansion here in the town of Petawawa in terms of infrastructure, services, and all of this has to be done with a shared vision. Thank you for your trust. We are looking forward to facing these challenges and together finding solutions and efficiencies in order to continue delivering high-quality services in a cost-effective manner that will help us build a vibrant and sustainable community here in Petawawa. I will just add one thing that because FCM released a statement in terms of what's going on in the world today. We do live in turbulent times and uncertain times, especially based on what's been going on with one of our neighbors and tariffs and what it's done to stock markets and economies. It's got a lot of people a little bit concerned and worried. I just want to read you a quote from FCM. In this time of economic uncertainty, FCM is calling all orders of government to accelerate and increase investment in growth-sustaining infrastructure. The prosperity of our communities now and into the future is critical. As we navigate this difficult period, we must take measures that ensure a stronger Canada emerges from this crisis. Investing in municipal growth framework and public infrastructure is a straightforward way to create local jobs and enable the economic growth and diversification we need across Canada. That's coming from FCM, and it's telling us that I know it's uncertain, I know it's a frightening time, but one of the ways that we can, I don't want to say insulate ourselves from a lot of the troubles, but is to ensure that we keep developing and growing here in the town of Petawawa, and that keeps our local businesses and companies at work here in the town of Petawawa. Okay, so what you have before us is what we've had since our budget workshop and what we've had since the public meeting. Is that right now what staff is recommending is that we have a 7% tax increase. So I'll open it up for questions or comments. Councillor Kerman.
Thank you, Mayor Service. I'd just like to start by saying that the message from FCM really is we're going to reach deep, deep into people's pockets and pull out more money so that we can push marginalized people over the edge. That's insane. Now, I guess it stands to reason when you consider the group. It's Federation of Canadian Municipalities. They're a lobby group representing municipalities, which for some reason tend to think that tax hikes, the higher the better. So I'm going to concentrate on numbers and percentages because that's what's important to people. What's important to people is how much tax they're paying. People are taxed to death. Governments have been in their pockets non-stop at every turn. And we use these pleasant words like investments. We have to make more investment with your money. We're going to decide how to spend your money. Like, we have to be cognizant of that fact that when we tax people, we are demanding that they pay money to us. There are very few people that have that power to demand money. And I have a little tax bill here from 1966. And on the tax bill, it says it's a demand for payment of 1966 taxes. Now, we don't use those terms anymore. We've gotten a lot softer. But it's still the same. It's a demand. When people don't pay those taxes, bad things happen. So that's why I say we have to be very cautious about this. I'm not willing to go any higher than 5% on a tax increase for this year.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Sabrin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You took the words right out of my mouth. This song is playing in my head right now. Originally, I have to say that I was prepared for a 7% tax increase and prepared to be able to go to the community on that. And then I heard from members of the community and people who are struggling, and people who I would think would not be struggling are struggling. This doesn't include the education tax rate. This doesn't include the County of Renfrew tax rate, which is more money. And we are talking just about the municipality, and I get that. And I think that we get very good bang for our buck by the team and by the services and by everything we do in this town. I too, however, am not prepared to agree to more than a 5% tax increase. I think that the cost of living hasn't been that high. We've put a buffer in there. We have had tax increases that were quite reasonable over the last number of years. And for this year, I would like to put a bit of a pause. And so 5% is where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Driscoll.
I will agree with both James and Teresa on this. Personally, I'd like to see the tax rate a little lower, and I think we could get there, but I am willing to make some concessions. Yeah, so I'm going to stick with that. I'm not going any higher than 5. Question now for staff. So looking at the transportation budget, I just wanted to get some more information on the certified engineering technologist. What exactly are they going to do that is not being done now, and what salary grid are they in? Because I know I'm assuming their salary is just added to the people cost. So I'd like to know what cost that is, and are they going to save the town money by not having to get contractors?
Yeah, the idea is to build some capacity internally. We deal with a lot of, sorry, trying not to create feedback here. Yeah, is that working?
You're on. You're on.
No, I'm getting feedback. Sorry. There it is. That's better. Yeah, the idea here is to create capacity. One of the tools that currently isn't at our disposal is mapping, not only for our services, but also our properties and our networks. So the idea here was to bring someone in to help us build the layers that we need in our system to do the job properly when we go out, which will allow us to do more work internally. So we don't have to contract out, we don't have to rely on the county or anybody else to do stuff for us. So that was that investment. We have an Esri database that we've been building over the last couple of years that is very close to being available to us, and we need to update everything we've got to have a proper mapping system so we know how deep pipes are, where they're placed, how old they are. It's part of asset management as well. The salary range, I can't remember off the top of my head.
So I did pull up the salary bylaw that council approved back in December. So it's in the 1100 to 1199 range. So that's some of the positions included in that category are the asset energy management coordinator, chief building official, city property supervisor, public works administrator, human resources coordinator, planner, and public works supervisor. They're in that wage band.
The other, just to follow up on that, the other part of this is our hope, and Chris and I have talked about this, is we hire someone with the certified engineering technician designation that we can, once we get our GIS house in order, we can start doing some work internally in regards to plans that we field out to JP2G and others. And we're talking about plans that wouldn't require an engineering stamp. So if we do a road refurbishment or road rebuild or culverts or anything like that, we can do that work in-house rather than paying JP2G or an engineering firm to do that for us. So again, it's trying to bring some more stuff back in-house that we've been paying other people to do for us, maybe at a larger cost.
Okay, understandable. So, and realistically, are we spending more than that salary range per year on contractors as of now to do those services?
I don't have an exact number or comparison dollar for dollar. So I can work with Chris in figuring that out. But at the current time, we are beholden to contractors in terms of their capacity, their billing rates. So bringing it in-house, as we've seen with HR as well as IT, we're able to do more with that staff on hand and not beholden to third parties. So there is a dollar comparison that can be done.
Councilor Creature. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Christine. Thank you for all the many hours of work I'm sure went into this. I think we all agree that the optimal situation is we don't have to raise taxes. Given that we're not in that optimal situation, I'm looking at just a dollar amount, like $11.50 a month on a typical residential house. When we're looking at the context we're in, where across the board, every input, there's increased costs. So obviously there's a pressure there. But also looking historically, where previously the rate has been set perhaps too low to maintain those healthy reserves. So for myself, although, I mean, I don't support a 7% tax increase, but I accept the need for it. I guess that's more the language I would use. I don't agree with depleting reserves to avoid paying the real cost of operating the town. And I think we're looking at a question too of intergenerational sharing. So people using resources now, but not paying to replace them. So putting the tax rate where it should be, that's sort of what I see what we're doing. Especially considering that even with the rate, we're still, if the rate were to increase by 7%, we're still highly competitive when you look at other municipalities who offer, I think, way less. And finally, I think we need to be serious about setting up the key ingredients for a successful town. So this 7% raise, it lets us achieve all the priorities that we've outlined for ourselves. So for this year, I would support that 7% raise.
Further comments? Councillor Roots.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For myself, I'm speaking that I'm looking at a 5% increase. I think we have to be very, very cautious in these times, and I think there's some opportunities here that we can bring some things in and still move forward. So it's just a matter of just tightening some. And that's where I'm at 5%. Thank you.
Councillor Driscoll.
One more question. I know on here we have the parking lot for the Civic Center, and Councilor Roos had brought up before about using a different layout there.
Your worship.
Oh.
Actually, before we start picking away at the budget, I'll let you know, and I think I've heard enough now that I think we're headed towards 5%. I want to let you know that we did read the staff, we read the tea leaves on this, and we did, as a senior management team, sit down about a week ago and we looked at where are the cost savings and how can we get it down those extra 2 percentage points to get it at 5%. If you let me, I have a slide deck with those changes, and we review them together, and so you can understand what we've been able to come up with as a team.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from council is that it's looking like we'd be more comfortable with a 5% increase. So with that in mind, as I said, staff has been working diligently for many months, and especially in the past couple of weeks, to prepare for all possible outcomes. And one of the possible outcomes is that council would ask for a 5% increase as opposed to a 7%. So what Scott is going to present to you now is a way forward in finding some savings across the corporation in order to find that extra 2%. So go ahead, CAO.
Sorry, just give me a sec here. I'm trying to share this online as well with you. So here's the 5% alternative as discussed. So just going back to the original budget presentation, just a reminder that $126,000 or $126,463 in tax revenue represents 1% tax increase. So as staff, like I said, reading the tea leaves and that this might be the outcome, we took a look at the operating and the capital budget again, and we came up with the following savings. So under building, we know we've got $4,500 in savings on the building inspector already from payroll. We were able to quantify that. Under economic development, the community improvement program, rather than taxing for the full amount, we have reserves left there, and we know that we're going to be reviewing that, or continuing that program in a couple of years' time, or before the end of 2026. So we're proposing to use a mixture of reserve and taxation. So that provided just under a $22,000 savings. Under public works, under the operating budget, the GIS specialist that was just mentioned, delaying the hiring for that position to June, originally it was April, provides $15,000 in savings from the operating side. And now getting into capital, under civic properties, there was $5,000 dedicated to taxation for the healing circle. We believe that we have another source of funding for that rather than taxation that doesn't come from reserves with an organization outside the municipality. So that is being removed. Under fleet, we Chris firmly believes that we can delay the purchase of the new blower attachment until 2026, which produces just a little over $151,000 in savings. From planning, we there won't be capacity to get it into the commercial and industrial land strategy until 2026. So there's just under $25,000 in savings there. And then under transportation, public works, we're proposing to delay the Sac Road paving, and this is just a piece of paving at the end of Sac Road. Just a small dirt piece there that we're planning on paving this year. We can put that off. It doesn't need to be done right now. And then, so split that money in half, get $30,900 in savings, and then take $30,000 of that money and put it towards the Black Bay Road project, just in case, as sort of a cushion. So all of that equals over $252,000 in savings, which is the 2% reduction that you're asking for.
And I'll just before I open it up.
Oh, just one more slide. So going back. so there we go. There's the rundown there between revenues and expenses, transfers to the reserve that we had planned for. I heard some concern about continuing to replenish reserve. We have the same concern. We want to see reserves healthy, especially with some of the capital projects we have slated for 2026. And of course, you'll see that the calculation comes out to the 5% tax increase as discussed.
Okay, I'll just, there is one big ticket item there, and it's the blower being moved ahead. Chris, if you don't mind, just, it's your department, and obviously you made the concession, but you just let council know, I guess, your feelings on the blower being moved 2026.
Yeah, so the blower is, it's a 2001. It's a 2001 piece of equipment, and it's connected to the loaders for use with our scale snow removal project. Fortunately, the town invested in a refurb in, I believe it was 2018, which has extended the life expectancy of that piece of equipment. It's hard to say with a piece of equipment that's 24 years old whether it's going to keep going long terms, but we do have things that if we did run into a problem with the blower, we could rent. However, we can't just rent the implement. We would have to rent a loader and the blower because of how they're connected to the loader. I think it can last another year, but just so council is aware, this is the second time it's been delayed. So we got to be cognizant of these things. Every time we delay, we're falling behind on another piece of equipment. So it's manageable. I will be directing staff to look at preventative maintenance on that piece of equipment, maybe spending a little bit more maintenance items on it. But I'm confident we can make it through another year.
And if it doesn't make it through, what are our options in terms of the cost, I guess?
Right. So you're looking at about a $200 to $250 an hour rental for a blower and loader worth of removals. You're probably looking at $35,000 in rental. So it's not cheap.
Okay, so we've been provided a solution by staff in terms of reducing to 5%. I guess I'll open it up to them. Councillor Kuchi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further there. What if we went with 6% in both the load? To avoid those rental costs, it would feel pretty foolish if that happened.
Other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and really a thank you to the staff. We're on the same team here. I know that it sometimes feels like it's one of these, but we all want what's best for the residents and the businesses in our municipalities. We want to see our community thrive, be healthy, and everything be fantastic for everybody. So I really do know that we're on the same team and whatnot. I appreciate that you've taken a look at these scenarios. The reality of implementing the majority of these scenarios
delays just means that it's an extra 2% next year, right? Or more, that kind of thing. And so I guess I do have a question with CIP because that's very near and dear to my heart. It's one of the tangible ways that we support our business community. With that adjustment, what would be the total amount that we would have for the year of 2025?
Same as normal.
So the total amount is still $90,000. What would be changing is how that $90,000 is funded. So originally it was 100% from taxation. And in this revision, we would be using some of the reserve, not all of them. So there would still be some in reserve. So it would be a mix of taxation and reserve funding. So $90,000 whole.
Okay, thank you. So I guess I would like to see another conversation. Are there other opportunities where we might be able to look at doing something a little less or a little bit differently to achieve the result? I guess it intrigued me and it sort of brought me back to the conversation about the parking lot and some of the, are there some new ways of, instead of doing a big cave, are there other ways to achieve results that we made for the parking lot? I think that's what we were talking about, right? So just I guess those are some of the kind of conversations I'm wondering if we're okay.
I think I'll turn it over to Chris because I don't think it's getting paid this year. It's just the bit of engineering and drainage.
So that's true. He just said confirm. Sorry, no, that's true. So, but just to be clear, you know, we're always going to try and find ways to save money whenever we can, right? We understand. So I think this year we were really good, and we were able to find savings here and there to give us that extra breathing space. We're cognizant of the fact we're looking, if you look at that 5-year financial plan, we're looking at that capital number for next year. And we're going to have to sit down and have a serious discussion as senior management and say, how are we going to manage this? You know, we've, I believe, if I remember correctly, our capacity next year in regards to reserves and such, out of that 3.6 million that's sitting there, we have 2.2 million lined up. It's almost 56, it hasn't gone completely. And so we're gonna have to take a serious look at what can be pushed off, or if there are other savings we can generate this year that pushes money forward. We'll always take advantage of those situations, and we'll be doing our job to sharpen our pencils to make sure that we're ready, right? And we'll be having those serious conversations of what's the priority and what needs to get done utmost before anything else. So.
Thanks for that. And I will tell council that we recently had a provincial election. You know that we have a new MPP. The same government is back. Scott and I, we've already sent letters to our local MPP and to the province requesting delegations and meetings again in terms of our tilt DET shortfall, our recalculation we'd like to see. So we are still working behind the scenes to try and access more government funding daily. So there's been phone calls and emails and letters sent to try and encourage the new government to come back to the table with us and try and deal with some of the issues. And I know that everybody's tracking this, but Ottawa lost this lawsuit with the federal government in terms of codes, so that puts the ball back in the province's court, which is why we're in contact with them and trying to let them know that we here in Petawawa need these issues. Now, it's hard to build a budget on both. Hopefully, our efforts come to fruition and we get some financial gains out of it. CA?
Yeah, I just want to add, you know, the other thing that we're doing, and we talk on a regular basis as a senior management team, is we keep our eyes out on the grant funding. So we've been successful in some areas, smaller grants. We're continuing to look for when money is released and what programs we can take advantage of, and we will find some savings through that if we can be able to generate provincial or federal support or other sources. So we'll continue to do that. Yeah, so that's always top of mind when we're looking at a project. Is there another source of funding that we can access to help get this done? So.
Okay, any other questions or comments on the proposal? Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This might be a little bit on the weedy side as well. When you were looking at administration, you mentioned that committees had some money in there. And I'm only seeing two, the EDI and accessibility. So is seniors and town times in there as well?
So the town times is in the council budget, and then the seniors committee is in the recreation, culture and tourism budget.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just to clarify that, so that what was called the town times, I took the initiative to change it to council communications, right? So.
I'm going to bring it back to the numbers. Again, Scott alluded to the tea leaves being read. So going back to that $400,000 sample house. So with a 7% tax rate increase, that would be $137.01 increase. With a 5% tax rate increase, that would equate to $97.86. So that's a decrease of $39.15. So I guess for people who don't have a $400,000 home assessed by MPAC, I tried to, for those listening and for council as well, so for every $100,000 of assessed value, a 5% tax rate increase is $24.47. But just for information.
Any further questions or comments? So I believe we found a solution to get ourselves to a 5% tax increase as per the will of council. So we need to, should I read this whole? I guess I should read this before I get council to vote on it. Okay, here we go. So the motion before you is that a proposed 2025 capital and operating budget be presented to council for approval at the March 17th, 2025 regular meeting of council, and that the 2025 water and wastewater budgets be presented at the same meeting, and that staff is directed to present the 2025 tax rate bylaw to council for approval at a regular council meeting in Q2 of 2025. Now, it doesn't say the amount 5% in there, but it's understood that after our discussion today that is the amount being proposed within this presentation. Everybody comfortable with that? I read a motion. Moved by Councillor Carmody, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, that a proposed 2025 capital and operating budget be presented to council for approval at the March 17th, 2025 regular meeting of council, and that the 2025 water and wastewater budgets be presented at the same meeting, and that staff is directed to present the 2025 tax rate bylaw to council for approval at the regular council meeting in Q2 of 2025. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Congratulations, everybody. We will have a budget for 2025.
I do ask that the binders in front of you, since they have your 7%, they are now null and void. So if you could please leave them, and we will work on updating the package with the revisions, so that'll be your buddy for 2025. And if you haven't already, I'll take the white binders back too, please.
Thanks, Christine. Okay, so excellent work, staff. Excellent work, council. Everybody's probably happy that now we can move forward, get the tenders out, and get everything going for after next week, the 2025 season. Okay, nothing for general matters, nothing for closed. I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Roos, seconded by Councillor Donovan, that the meeting be adjourned and call the mayor. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried.